Greetings, everyone. And welcome to a creepy, far easty edition of Monster Party.
Monster Party!
Monster Party! I don't know what that sound is. I'm assuming it's somehow related to maybe martial arts or kung fu.
Perhaps.
Okay,
Perhaps it
but
is.
you know what? I'm going to go with it.
Hey,
I like your Foley. I like what you do with that.
Okay, well, speaking of martial arts experts, who are you, sir?
Well, I do have a certificate. But anyway, my name is Matt Weinhold.
And I am SHAWN SHERIDAN.
I'm Larry Strothe.
And I'm James GONIS.
And for this episode, now, we have yes, Larry,
Right.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. I'll
in
stop
case
the
you
whole
haven't
fucking show so you can say your thing. Go ahead.
No, in case you haven't figured it out.
Yes, thanks. Good Lord. For this episode, this is a topic where we have discussed films like this in the past, but sort of like tangentially,
Peripherally.
As part of another topic. But I think this is the first time we've actually had a specific topic about these types of films. And the topic is Asia Shock Cinema.
Asia Shock Cinema!
Asia Shock Cinema. Asia Shock Cinema. Yeah. And so this isn't really a kung fu centered topic necessarily.
No, it's not. It's not.
We don't want to push you down the wrong corridor.
But Matt, this is such a big topic, and you need someone who's really an expert, someone who knows their stuff.
My God, this is a treat for me because our guest is an old and dear friend of mine, someone who I consider kind of a mentor. Yes, in high school, he turned me on to so many cool things that I am still crazy about today, with some minor exceptions that maybe we'll talk about later. But he is an extremely talented author and Asian film expert who's written the absolutely must-have books, Stray Dogs and Lone Wolves, the Samurai Film Handbook, Warring Clans, Flashing Blades, a Samurai Film Companion, and of course, Asia Shock, horror and dark cinema from Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, and Thailand. Ooh,
Wow.
Thailand.
Wow.
And may I add, he's quite the kick-ass musician. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the great Patrick Galloway.
Patrick Galloway!
Thank you.
Gentlemen. Oh, Pat, thank God you're here.
Thank you so much for being with us, man.
Yeah,
You're an
awesome.
expert.
He's an
My
expert.
pleasure. Subject matter expert.
Yeah. And I mean, he's one of us also in the sense that now you have visited these countries and experienced
I've
their delights.
Been to Japan, not as many times as you, I think, but I've been to Japan 3 times and
That's a
various
lot
other
right there.
countries as well.
And you love Japan like we do, right? Like when you get there, don't you?
I want to go tomorrow.
We should.
Yeah.
We need to go.
I wanna go
We
with
all
you.
feel that way. Yes. No, you have to go with us.
I want to
think
hook up with you over there. Absolutely.
I hope you like spending 8 hours at Nakano Broadway.
Yeah.
I want to go up to Nikko to the Edo Wonderland up there and indulge in a little samurai fun. There's
Let's
a
do it.
theme park.
Yeah.
Have you been to this theme
Yeah.
park, man?
I have not been to that one. No.
It's in Nikko, which is just, I don't know, about 100 miles north of Tokyo, and it's like they have it laid out like a town, like a small Japanese town back in the 1700s.
Wow.
And so it's like I wouldn't say theme park. It's really like you're walking onto a set of a samurai film. It's incredible.
Wow.
Everybody's in costume, and every now and then somebody will run in and have a sword fight right in front of you. Like it's
That's cool.
pretty.
You went to the
awesome. Anybody's
Toei
into
Park.
samurai.
The Toei
Yeah.
Studio Park was kind of fun because
that's cool.
Where is that? Is that in Kyoto?
Kyoto. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't get to that one. I would love to
That
go
was
to
that
one.
was neat because it is actually a film set to this day. Like they use those
right.
sets. And so you get to walk through that part of it. But then you also get to see there's a couple museums that have all these different statues of like the Super Sentai stuff and Tokusatsu, like Kamen Rider figures and props. And I never wanted to leave that place.
Yeah,
I mean, they had a full set of like the Shocker headquarters with the first two Kamen Riders. And there was, it's like a little photo op. And I was just like, I will not leave. I'm not going to leave.
Pat, you've traveled the world. You've specialized in this stuff. But for our listeners, can you tell us Asia shock cinema? What does that mean exactly?
What does it mean to you?
Well, if you get the book, it's out of print, but you can still get it. I kind of explained in the beginning that I had to kind of come up with my own concept of the subtitle of the book is, as you said, horror and dark cinema. What I mean by dark cinema is there's a certain kind of extreme movie that you get in Asian cinema, Japanese and Korean cinema, where even though it might be like a police procedural or a mystery, the shock value and the violence value is so elevated that it kind of pushes it off into its own genre, right? Where it's really rather extreme, Asia shock, that's the phrase. And you don't really use this with other types of national cinema. Or maybe you do, but my focus was just in this particular kind of
I'd say the closest American equivalent is the term psychotronic, which is used a lot.
Sure.
Michael Weldon kind of coined that phrase, just psychotronic cinema, which is just kind of
grindhouse,
kind of, but like you said, elements that are extreme of either of darkness or horror or shock or whatever. It's just kind of like a drive-in sensibility to it sometimes. But it's
also there's a quality control there. There's a level of production value that you get in Asian film where you'll have these extremes of content where it's extremely bloody or extremely violent, and yet it's so nicely done. It's not like some sort of a third-rate slasher film.
Right.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. That's what really stands out. And another element that I found, that you don't get from Hollywood is ambiguity. There are levels of you're not sure exactly what's going on sometimes in these films.
It's surreal
Larry hates that.
But the endings clear it up, right? The ending
sometimes,
maybe not. No,
maybe not always.
Quite a number of films where they'll start chat rooms after the movie comes out to sit and talk about what the hell just happened. You know what I mean? And that's okay. Asian audiences will be okay with this. American audiences won't put up with that.
We won't.
Remakes.
We will.
Remakes of like The Ring or like, The Grudge. And in the remake, they kind of spell everything out for you. It's
exactly.
Terrible.
Yeah, no, they're not terrible.
It's like, and also I think it includes like elements of like crisscrossing tropes, so to speak. Like you have like some of the movies I was looking at, like they're kind of like aimed at younger audiences, almost children's stories, but they have horrible, graphic, scary stuff in it. Like that's not for kids, but yet it is. Like it's just weird.
The changing of gears,
disparate elements.
In like Hong Kong film, they will change gears, and 1 minute you're looking like a guy killing a family, and the next minute you got some kooky cops like poking each other and laughing and giggling and stuff. There's extreme, a lot of that in Hong Kong cinema.
And that's also a cultural thing too, of like what that culture has been through juxtaposed to what, let's say, a Western audience is used to. So you have like a children's story, even in something like Kamen Rider, where there are people who are brutally murdered, and it's a kid show because what they're trying to show is that bad people are bad, and that makes the heroism even more heroic because you're dealing with this just completely nefarious force. And that's one of the things that I also, you were talking about the production value thing. And I like, even in some of the movies where it might have a little bit more of a campy feel to it, or even a campy production value, there's such sincerity in the way that it's portrayed all the way through. And there's a particular film that I'm thinking of, and we'll come back to it when
Me too.
we finally get to it. But anyway, a very famous one. Yes. So Pat, I know that you wanted to talk and kind of lead us into this thing with all these films coming out of Korea. Korea now it's the place. It's the big thing. I mean, Squid Game, and
Oh, my
All of Us
gosh.
Are Dead, and Snowpiercer. Now we've got a Western series that's based on that. Of course, Parasite. And so, how did this whole thing come to pass?
Yeah, and
Do you
who are the
think
prominent
this thing
filmmakers?
made
Yeah.
Korean films and especially genre kind of things burst through?
Well, nobody could have been more proud than a couple of years ago when Bong Joon-ho got the Oscar for Best Director and Best Film, Best Screenplay
Yeah.
for Parasite. And I had been writing about this guy. I go back with this guy. He made a movie in 2003 called Memories of Murder, which was about Korea's first contemporary serial killer. During the 80s. It's actually a true story. And at the time that it was made, they had not found this guy. They had never caught him.
Really?
And in fact,
Wow.
just recently, a couple of years ago, they finally got the guy.
No way.
Yeah. He was already in prison for some other crimes, other murders
Okay.
he had done. And they finally put it together that he was also this guy that did all these murders back in the 80s.
Wow.
So it's interesting to go back and go look that one up. Memories of Murders, 2003.
Memories of Murders.
But
And
that
did
was
very
one of-
well, right? Critically acclaimed and
Yeah, no, it's great. And the guy that was sitting next to, I want to really point this guy to everybody out. Song Kang-ho is the actor that was sitting next to Bong Joon-ho at the Oscars. If you wondered who that other guy was that they kept cutting to, he's like one of the biggest actors in Korea and has been for 20 years. He's in that movie. He's actually in most of the movies that I would mention in this discussion. Great guy, Song Kang-ho. He played the schlubby dad in Parasite.
right.
He
Okay.
becomes the driver for the rich guy, and he was also in another Bong Joon-ho film from 2006 called The Host. Have you guys seen The Host?
Sure.
Well, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say,
Okay.
wasn't The Host made Bong Joon-ho more audiences became aware of him more from that movie, kind of in a way?
Well, that kind of broke him out because it was a monster movie.
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
and I saw that in 2006 up at the Portland International Film Festival, and it did pretty well. It got
It's
it
an amazing
out.
movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I
And,
love about
so-
that movie too is that in that film, the monster is almost secondary
It
to
is.
the plot.
It's the family that you're following
Yeah.
that makes that movie. And people have commented if you didn't even have the monster, it'd still be an amazing movie because it's that eccentric, quirky family that you become so entwined with. And then you have this fantastic monster with amazing special effects that just adds to it.
Well, and then
once again,
the whole thing about the formaldehyde and environmental concerns. And,
Yeah.
And once again, the schlubby dad is a guy named Song Kang-ho, the same actor who was the schlubby dad in Parasite is also the schlubby dad.
He's so
The
great.
Host.
Yeah.
Right.
And also in Memories of Murder, he's like the main rural cop that's investigating all the serial murders
Okay.
because they happened out in the countryside. And in fact, that film, Memories of Murder, is kind of there's like the city versus country dynamic where he's the country bumpkin cop, and then they bring in the city cop from Seoul. And then the two of those guys kind of, go at it with each other, but together they try to solve the case. Obviously, the case hadn't been solved at the time that film was made. So it's one of those ones where it isn't really resolved at the end. And, what are you going to do?
So is that movie actually about that murder, or is it using that as a template?
No, it's actually about a series of actual murders based on a true story. And there was a real guy, and he was their first big kind of contemporary. I say contemporary because every, culture has had serial killers, like maybe back in the 19th century or
Sure.
Right.
other time periods. But as far as the modern serial killer, that was Korea's first back in the 80s. But,
And when it comes to Parasite, that was one of those films where, I loved it. My wife loved it. Most of the people that I know and respect really love that movie. And then, of course, you get the chorus of people who are like, I can't believe that's the movie that won Best Picture. And I look at that movie, and especially as an Oscar-nominated film, there are so many unique story elements in that pushes it out of the pack of the rest of those films, especially from that year. And you've got the elements of the family. There's elements of comedy. Then you've got this, I don't know if Bong Joon-ho ever saw Bad Ronald. the TV movie, but there's elements of that in there too.
Totally.
And it's so unique. And that's a movie where I feel like the conclusion is very satisfying. And it really stands apart. And I just love that. I love the fact that now also when it comes to streaming too, that these things are now being more widely accepted to Western audiences.
Yeah, and the fact that most Oscar films or films that get Oscars are seem to be of a sort of a separate class, that are films that are just made to get Oscars,
Right,
that
sure.
most people haven't seen and such. The fact that this film, this wonderful, amazing Korean film got the nod. I just felt like something must have been in the water that year because it's just so different.
From outside.
COVID.
I don't know. LA got some weird water or something. But,
No, I was
really pleased that that got that.
I was thrilled that it won because of what it was, and I had seen it before it was even nominated. But I did have a structural issue with it.
There we go.
That honestly, that ruined it for me, and
Ruined it.
Yes, it ruined it.
It ruined it.
It threw me out of it because I was loving it until exactly halfway through. I looked at my watch. It was the exact halfway through the running time. The family's sitting in the house, and the doorbell rings, and I'm like, "Don't answer the door. Just don't answer the door, please." But they answer the door, and it changes. It propels the trajectory of where the film goes in the second half. And I couldn't help but think, you just shouldn't have answered the damn door. I know that's.
Let me challenge you.
Please,
because it seems
Pat.
like you guys are all
challenge him, Pat. Go get him.
You guys are all into horror films, right?
Yes, just a bit.
Tell me that you've never loved a horror film where somebody did some really stupid shit to keep the horror film going. Like, come on, guys. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
How many times has something hinged on somebody going into that room where they really shouldn't have gone into?
To me, it's just good storytelling. Another plot point happens that, yes, it throws it in trajectory into a different.
But I'm just
saying,
saying,
that's what I like about it.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's like,
You know what it is?
Or the I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't have done that.
See, Pat,
That's
this is my thing.
ridiculous.
No, it's like armchair quarterbacking. It's like saying, that quarterback, when he made that stupid pass, I wouldn't have done. It's like, you don't know unless you were in that situation. You mean to tell me if you're sitting there watching a film and the doorbell rings, it's like you just feel, you get up and you go. It's like if your phone rings, what do you do?
Don't answer the door? Maybe that you will cause a problem or whatever.
But it's like when your phone rings, you pick it up. Hello. I mean, that's what people do. If people knock on your door, typically you just get up and go. I question.
I enjoyed the fact that it won.
It ruined it for you.
It ruined it for you.
Ruined it.
But to see a Korean suspense film win the Academy Award for Best Picture, and for him to go up there, the speeches that he made were awesome. I love the fact that he thanked Tarantino. I was very pleased at that, even though I had issues with the film itself, personally.
Well, let me just say, I agree with you. At that moment in the film, I felt the exact same way. I was like, you don't have to open up the door. She's out there in the rain. There's no way she can get in. You can just blow this off. Just let it go. So I'm with you there. But, what do you
people do stupid things every day. Right,
every day.
Especially in the movies.
I do stupid things all the time. Hello. I'm surprised I'm still alive. It's like, look at that. Look at that electric socket. Or it's like, hey, the toast is stuck in the toaster. Let me stick a fork in. Yeah, I don't know. How am I still around? Maybe my time is coming up. I don't know.
I'm going to move in with her. All right.
Okay.
All right. So most of us love that movie. Okay.
I was going to say, in addition to Bong Joon-ho, there's a couple other filmmakers that I'd like anybody listening to this to go and track down if they get a chance. If you're interested in Korean cinema, there's the guy. You might have heard of a little film called Old Boy. Anybody see Old Boy?
No.
I've always known about that movie. I've not seen it yet.
One of my favorites.
That is a film from 2003, and it was directed by a guy named Park Chan-wook. And Park Chan-wook is just right up there with Bong Joon-ho. For my money, every inch is good, if not better, director. And the films that he makes just stand right up there.
I agree.
Right.
And Old Boy is the middle film of what is known amongst us fans of this guy as the revenge trilogy. He made 3 films. The first one was called Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. And if you heard that one, the second one was Old Boy, and then the third one was Sympathy for Lady Vengeance. Maybe just Lady Vengeance. The third one, not as strong. With the first 2 are just really must see, and it's revenge tragedy. And I make a point in the book of saying that it's revenge tragedy on the level of almost like Shakespeare. I mean, as far as just so gut wrenching, so intense, so over the top, just it is the essence of a revenge tragedy.
Right. Greek tragedy,
on a level
tragedy, like Oedipus.
Yeah, exactly. Or you go back to like Seneca, that was the guy, back in the day that used to specialize in this type of a story. And again, the Elizabethans did a lot with it, with everything from Hamlet to, the Revenger's tragedy to the Spanish tragedy. But I haven't really seen it done as much as a genre in Hollywood as it became a thing, in the late 90s, 2000s in Korea, the revenge saga. So,
but it was remade with Josh Brolin.
Josh Brolin, yeah, which I think casting wise, should have been Gary Oldman. They should have done Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
Here's another thing.
That would have been the perfect guy for that. If you've seen Old Boy, if you've seen the guy, Choi Min-sik is the guy that stars in that, and he's incredible. He's one of those guys like Olivia, who comes from theater, got into film and cinema, and he's just electric. You can't take your eyes off him. Old Boy is one of the greatest contemporary Korean films ever made.
Although not to be the fly in the ointment again, but there was a moment where I'm sorry. Look, there was
go for it.
When he had the chance to kill the villain. He had a clear choice to make, and he didn't do it. And I respect and understand the reason that he didn't do it. But I kept thinking the whole second half of the movie, you should have killed him when you had the chance.
You know what, James? I can't wait to find out what happens when you're imprisoned in a room for 15 years and not knowing why, which is, by the way, the plot of Old Boy.
Yes.
And then you're released, and I hope that you make all the right decisions once you get out. Okay? Look, let me just say something. Western cinema does have a certain amount of revenge thrillers, and I enjoy those types of movies. I really do. And,
yeah, me too.
But the one thing about the Vengeance trilogy is that the buildup of why these people are getting revenge, the reason they're so angry, is really what sets it apart. Because Old Boy, you're thrown in a room for 15 years. You're looked after 15 years in a room, not knowing why you're imprisoned. And then you're suddenly released. And now you're following this web of intrigue to figure out what's going on. And knowing
the guy that imprisoned you has given you a cell phone and a wad of cash and said, come find me.
Right. And then
you're really confused.
That's what makes it different, though. That's what makes it something else. It's not just the Punisher. They killed my family and now I'm going after him, which is fine. I enjoy that kind of thing too. But this is quite a few steps above that.
Exactly. Sure. That's my point. Is normally this kind of subject matter would be relegated to something like Punisher, and and it's not. It's like you say. There's another category of drama that's happening that demands a more serious look.
Well, it's also reminded me a little bit of Sergio Leone and For a Few Dollars More, where you get the Lee Van Cleef motivation only in flashbacks, and then you walk away with that, and it enriches the film a lot more. So I get that.
And Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, you brought up Shakespeare. I mean, that thing is really a Shakespearean drama. Yeah. I mean, just all the things that go wrong. And if you could just run us through the plot a little bit of that one.
Well, essentially, there's a deaf mute guy who's represents the very poor working class, kind of individual. And then there's a rich industrialist guy. And the working class guy just decides he's gonna do a kidnapping. He's gonna kidnap the industrialist guy's young daughter and just get the ransom and then go about his way. Has no plan on hurting the girl at all. He's a sweet guy. Got a girlfriend, they take care of the girl. They take her to the park, while they're waiting for the money. But something goes horribly wrong, and she winds up not living, and things kind of spiral out of control
Well, and then there's also that whole thing about he's going to use that money for his sister's kidney operation.
Yeah, exactly. It's his motivation for the money is purely, it's selfless.
And then that part of it then goes sideways. And it's just, there's so many rungs to this.
And it's like there's no villain or hero. Everybody loses. That's the essence of classical tragedy. Is that everybody dies in the end. You know what I mean?
Right.
Everyone loses.
Yeah. Everyone loses. Dies. But it's very interesting to watch how it all transpires. Yeah. And I would agree with you too, that Lady Vengeance is the weakest of them. Although I do find the plot pretty interesting as well.
Yeah. If you're a completist, you probably want to see all three. And of course it's a lot better than, half the schlock that comes out every year. Anyway,
sure.
So
and that one is all about a woman who's serving time in prison for basically a murder she didn't commit. And to tell you any more would be giving the rest away, because there's so many tendrils to her story and her revenge and how that proceeds. All three of those films I would absolutely say are worth seeing. I think must see.
Nice.
That's one of the problems that I've had writing that book was trying to decide, I don't want to blow the ending, but even blowing other parts of it, there's so many plot twists and turns in so many of these movies. It's tough to discuss them at all without feeling like you ruined at least part of it for somebody.
Right.
But,
so run us through some of the other ones you had on here on your list here. The Quiet Family.
There was one other. There was one other. I got kind of a trio of Korean filmmakers that I wanted.
Go ahead.
To get out there, so that anybody listening to this can afterwards go and look them up on IMDb and run through their catalogs, because they're really it's a good entry point for Korean if you want to discover Korean cinema. So the third director I have is a guy named Kim Ji-woon, and I had a couple of films I wanted to mention. There's one called The Quiet Family, which you just said. Have you seen The Quiet Family, Matt?
I have not, no.
Okay, it was actually remade by Miike as The Happiness of the Katakuris. Did you ever see that film?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I've seen that. That was bizarre.
What was wrong with that one, James?
No, I enjoyed that thoroughly. But it's surreal. It's very surreal.
Yeah. Well, what do you remember about it?
Boy, it's a family that runs an inn up in the mountains, and there's a stop motion animation. There are musical numbers. I can't say I remember much about the plot, but I remember the scenes vividly.
Yeah. The original film was a Korean film. From 1998, and it concerns a family who try to start a bed and breakfast up in sort of the hills country, so it's kind of out in the way. And right off the bat, they're struggling to get this business off the ground, and the people that come to stay in their inn wind up suddenly dying of various causes and reasons. So one guy kills himself, another guy, it's a mishap, he accidentally dies. And they're so worried about their business being adversely affected by this. They're just getting off the ground. They don't want to have somebody died here kind of thing hanging over them, that they decide we better just go bury these people out back. You know what I mean? What could happen?
What could go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong?
And things, as you can imagine, kind of snowball from there. This family is just snake bit like nobody's business. And and then of course, there are new roads coming through. So now they're going to be digging the place up. So now we got to go out, and if you thought it's fun running around the woods burying bodies, how about digging them up and burying them somewhere else? And, and there's like storms that come, and the bodies
it sounds
sort of
great
washed here and there. And yeah, it's a great film. And then, like I say, Takashi Miike remade it, and he added claymation, and he added songs, and he did.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, if you're a purist like me, you're going to say, no, the original was just fine. It really didn't need all the extras.
So wait, did he do a George Lucas digital Star Wars thing to it? He took a good film and just added a bunch of stuff, and that wasn't necessary?
Honestly, I think he felt maybe a little intimidated by how good the original was, and he was trying to put his own stamp on it, trying to up the ante, trying to raise the stakes, as it were. Okay. That was my feeling, having seen both films, is that Miike felt I gotta do something better, bigger, better.
That sounds like what the guy did with the remake of Suspiria.
Oh no!
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like just take it a different direction and to do weird other things with it, but and
trying to make it your own. Whole. I got to put my stamp on this.
Make another movie. Just make a different movie.
Use that money and make something else.
Make your own film. Exactly.
But Pat, so this one though, this is The Quiet Family, right?
That's called The Quiet Family. And another film that I will just mention, since we're on the topic of sort of an Asia shock thing, this guy Kim Ji-woon, who I want you to explore, this guy could do anything. He's done a film in every genre. So he did a film called A Tale of Two Sisters, which is the other one I want to mention to you, which is a K-horror. You've heard of J-horror, The Ring, The Grudge, these kind of films. Well, there's also a thing called K-horror, which is very similar.
K-horror.
For Korea. J-horror is
Larry.
Japan, K.
Oh,
Korea.
sorry. That was like kite horror or something, but
No,
Korea horror.
Just ignore him. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, Tale of Two Sisters is a classic ghost story, and it's about two sisters. And it starts what the Latins would say in medias res, which means like it kind of starts in the middle of the story, and you don't know exactly why certain things are happening. But as gradually as it goes on, you start to get filled in what was happening at the front end. So it's a really interesting fact. Again, I can't really go into it too much because I'm gonna ruin it for you. But let's just say that the two girls have been away, and you're gonna find out where they were and why, and maybe why one of them still is kind of a little out of it. And before long, there's the long-haired lady ghost that's showing up, and
Always good.
That's one thing I wanted to mention since we're talking about this stuff is that, like with The Ring, we've all seen The Ring, right, guys?
Yes.
Okay. So Sadako, the long-haired lady ghost, crawls out of the well. That goes back. That long-haired lady ghost really goes back to the 19th century, 18th century kabuki, no drama. I mean, it's an ancient trope.
Really?
Well, isn't it kind of like a little bit in yokai too? A little bit?
Of course.
Yeah, it's like,
I'm saying it's
that
not
kind of ghost.
It's not a new invention.
Yeah,
well,
right.
yokai is a ghost. I mean, that's what it means. But I'm just saying that I'm actually jumping around here a little. I hope you don't mind.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Let's bring up a guy named Nobuo Nakagawa. This guy was like the master of horror of the 50s and 60s in Japan. This guy made a film called The Ghost of Yatsuya.
On my list.
Right.
Based on a kabuki play from like 1825, been written by a guy named Nambuko Tsuruya IV. And he was specialized in this kind of stuff. Couldn't keep lines around the block in the kabuki-za, in Tokyo, what have you. And so this film has been made and remade, numerous times. But the one made in 1959 by Nobuo Nakagawa that's the one. That's the one you want to see. That's
it's great.
Greatest Japanese film horror, ghost horror films ever made.
Yeah.
And again, the vengeful lady ghost in that is not that far away from Sadako. And
no, not at all. Yeah.
The point I'm trying to make is that a lot of people saw these J-horror films right around the turn of the last century and thought that was some sort of a new thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
The new hip Japanese thing. And it's actually, it's the new old thing from 1825. Or 1725.
Right.
No. Patrick, can you kind of give just a gist of the plot of Ghost of Yatsuya?
Yeah, sure. Well, there's it's set in the Edo period, where you have samurai walking around. The Tokugawa period ran from 1603 to 1868, and so it's about 260 years where Japan was ruled by this family. I was just going to say company, but actually it was a family who were like a company called the Tokugawa, and during that time, the Tokugawa, I don't want to get too deep into a history lesson here, but they were consolidating their power. And by doing that, they put a lot of samurai out of work, because part of what they would do as they absorbed other feudal domains is that a lot of guys would suddenly just not be needed anymore. The samurai warrior class. So you had a lot of outer work samurai, more and more of them throughout that period. So what you get is a lot of guys that really are basically, really good at killing people with swords who got nothing to do, and they got no money.
Right.
And so they get a little desperate, and you see a lot of different samurai films where you can see all the different varieties of what an out of work. They're called Ronin.
Ronin, yeah.
Ronin.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so this particular Ghost of Yatsuya tale concerns a Ronin who is a particularly nasty piece of work. And
he's also very horny.
He's horny. He's a social climber. He's a money grubber, and he really will do anything to get ahead and get a leg up. And he marries a very sweet woman, has a baby with her, and soon meets another woman who's got a very rich family. And he thinks, what am I doing with this woman, with this kid? And figures out a way to do away with her by procuring a very, very disfiguring, hideous poison, which he manages to get into her. Her face, half her face turns into a horrible black, scab. Yeah. And as she's dying, she tries to fix herself up, and she starts to comb her hair, and have her hair rips out of her head. And it's this horrific
scene,
my
gosh,
which was done live on the Kabuki stage to just horrify the crowds there. And next thing you know, she's dead. He's hired someone else to seduce her before she died, to kind of try to besmirch her name. That guy gets the chop. And,
he's a nasty guy, man.
He's an old man. It's really bad. And so then he's on his way to marry the new wife. But in the process, his old wife has turned into the Japanese vengeful lady ghost. And
can you blame her?
She takes her revenge on him, and it's the way it's done. Though. Now, I got to warn you that the version of this film, The Ghost of Yotsuya from 1959. You can get it, but it's very hard to get. And I just looked on Amazon that you can get a copy for like $88 used at the DVD.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I think it's not easy to see. I don't know if you can see it actually on one of the streaming services. I know.
I saw it originally. Turner Classic Movies ran it at one time, and I taped it.
Really?
God bless them. They ran that. They ran a bunch of Asia Shock Cinema movies back a while back.
Every now and then you'll see something like that.
I think I got it from you, James.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah,
I have
What's pretty amazing if you look on HBO Go. If you just go into I think the action section of if you go into the genres of HBO Go, that app, there's a lot of samurai films in there, and Hanzo the Razor, Matt. All three
right? Yes.
Yeah. In HBO Go, can you imagine watching Hanzo the Razor on HBO Go? It's on there. Go drill down into the action.
I don't think they know what they have.
Exactly. Yeah.
That story has been retold in cinema, in Japanese cinema.
I was going to say
many different times.
Yeah.
Kwai-Dan has kind of a story that's like that.
Yeah.
But not as gruesome.
Right.
Are you talking about Kwai-Dan, the one that has the 4 different stories?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
Talking about Masaki Kobayashi, 1960.
Right. Yeah. It's not
1964. Yeah.
Is it the segment, the black hair?
Yeah, but it's not nearly as gruesome as
right.
Ghosts of Yotsuya.
Well, to me, and also that director Nakagawa, the next year made a film that Matt and we've talked about before, which is amazing and even more insane and gruesome at times. And that's Jigoku, right? 1960, which is basically hell, and it's like these college students run over this like derelict bum on the street, and they leave
him yakuza,
right? And they leave him for dead,
drunken yakuza,
and they just leave him there to die. And of course, then they soon are experiencing the horrors of hell, basically.
Yeah, there's a lot of philosophizing about what the nature of hell.
And like they're in the classroom in the beginning about right.
But when you get to hell, though, that's that's when it really this is what I came for.
It takes a while, though. It's a little bit of a Kubrickian pace there.
Yes, I completely agree.
Yeah.
But the image of the woman done wrong, the ghost, Sadako is sort of the spitting image of that prototype. She's very pale. She's got the long black hair.
Right. And the white outfit. Yeah.
Can I just say something, though? The one thing about that ghost is that of all the types of ghosts that you could present to me, to have it be that one with the long black hair, I'm so attracted to that. I love the long black hair. I love brunettes, first of all, right out of the gate. But then, with the white and the black and the
in the face, with
the eye coming through, it's kind of provocative and come hither.
I don't know a lot.
She's giving you the eye.
Yeah, and then coming out of my TV set. How many times, guys, have we wished a lady would come out of our TV set?
True.
Look, I'm sure that ladies back then, proper ladies, wore their hair down long. But most of the time, when I think about proper ladies back then in feudal Japan, they've got their hair up like geishas.
Right. Yeah.
To see it down, it's almost like, ooh, that's like naughty.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
That's little bit. There's something a little bit scary about that, maybe.
Yeah.
I was just looking at that earlier today, just to kind of review a couple of things. And if you recall, the guy who she comes out of the TV and goes after, I don't remember that actor. His name is Hiroyuki Sanada, who he's actually gone on to do a lot of Hollywood stuff since that film. He was on Lost. I mean, he's been in a bunch of films, Hollywood films since that time. But I just want to mention that he goes back all the way back to like the 80s, and he was an action star. He was like a bouncing off the walls ninja kind of guy. And he actually was aligned with a guy named Sonny Chiba. You guys know who's
Yeah.
Sonny Chiba had a thing called the Japan Action Club, which was him and all of his stuntman buddies. And they would actually, it was like a company, like a stock company of stunt guys that Sonny Chiba would use in his own films and then hire out to other films if you needed a bunch of, like I say, ninjas bouncing off the walls. You call it Sonny Chiba. And Hiroyuki Sanada was one of those guys. And he famously in the 80s turned his back on that. He walked away. He said, "No, Sonny Chiba, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to be a serious actor." And he did, and he made good. And he's the guy you see freaking out as Sadako's coming out of the TV at him. And he's since then
really
gone
good.
from strength to strength. So hats off to Hiroyuki Sanada.
Sonny Chiba just passed away not too long ago.
That's right. Yeah.
He got to be in what was that, Kill Bill Part 2 or something?
Right.
Yeah.
That was the one mainstream American film.
Yeah, true.
Right.
But when it comes to The Ring, we've talked about remakes of Asian films. And there's one thing that always gets me, and that is that I know that The Ring was very popular. The American remake was very popular and successful.
Right. Yes.
However, the thing, and I know that James will agree with me on this, and that is that part of what makes it a little bit scarier for me is the Asian feel. It feels right. In a lot of ways, it's intrinsically a Japanese story, and you have all that history too, as you were just describing, that adds to it. And when I see a remake, it feels a little false. And like even the effects in the Ring remake feel a little too slick.
Yeah.
And it takes me a bit out of it.
Well, we said the same thing about trying to make an American Godzilla. It's not quite the same.
It's not the same. No.
It's never the same.
Like I remember, you're right. In the American remake of The Ring, you see Sadako's face a little more. I think it was even like Rick Baker. Maybe I heard that design. Yeah. And it looks cool and scary, but it's not. It doesn't.
It's too much.
You don't need that.
You don't need
it's
that.
like it's just. It's.
But
more,
you see, in America, we want to see our monsters. You know?
Oh yeah, of course.
I want to see my monster. I want my money shot. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Asian films, you maybe you will, maybe you won't see it. Maybe you'll just get it. Like a perfect example is the last, the big money shot of The Ring is you just see a little eye poking out through the hair, and that's it. That's all you get. And an American audience ain't going to take that. They're going to go, "What? That's all I get?
Yeah, right.
Eyeball? Nah. I need more than that."
It's the overall impact of it. And I also think, horror films from Asia that I grew up with, like movies from the 60s and 70s, there was also something, as Matt and I, we've talked about the yokai films. Those films are so bizarre and surreal and outrageous, but they're, to me, like if America tried to make a yokai monster, they'd spend hundreds of millions of dollars and they would all be CGI and they would all look incredibly real and perfect. But that's not what it's about. Like the yokai monsters, part of their creepiness is because they're so weird and kind of not right looking, not just in their design, but like they do kind of sometimes look like puppets or inanimate objects that are moving around, but it's just the oddness of it makes that work.
Are you talking about the Yokai Monsters trilogy of films?
Yes,
in the 60s. So 100 Monsters, Spook Warfare, and Along with Ghost, which
right.
they're just, and other effects in the movies are really are really realistic kind of and do it, but there's something so bizarre about them.
They embrace that too. I think it's not.
Well, a lot of those are traditional Japanese folkloric ghosts, I mean, they're not made up for the film. They're the real thing that you've been hearing from your mom and your grandma.
Right.
The umbrella thing, the umbrella ghost.
Yeah, like it's like that would never have been concocted in an American horror film. There's no way.
But I'm saying that it's also they were traditionally folkloric. They weren't just made up for those films either.
Right.
Yeah. Shigeru Mizuki, he, along with those films, kind of like brought back yokai. Prior to those films and Kitaro, the yokai were kind of like this thing that was sort of in the past, and that people didn't really, like popular culture didn't really remember too well. And then those films came out and the comics came out, and then there was like this resurgence in interest in yokai.
Mm. Well, I mean, ghosts, just in general, ghosts are a big deal in all across Asia, in Hong Kong culture, all those different cultures. It never really gets old. Maybe perhaps that particular brand of ghost got a little bit of resurgence. But what's funny about those films, those yokai monster films, is that they were made at Daiei. They were like the big film studios back in those days were Toho, Toei, Shochiku, Daiei, and
Shintoho.
Nikatsu.
Well, Shinto was there for a minute. No, Nikatsu was the fifth one I was going to think of. But those were basically like a package. If you think of the Zatoichi films, right? Those films were like a Zatoichi film, a Dai Zatoichi film, and you took Zatoichi out and you stuck some yokai monsters in, right? Or
yes.
like Daimaji. I knew we were going to get the Daimaji.
Sure, yeah.
Right.
Same story.
Same thing. It's a mid-60s Dai
feudal Japan.
Film. And instead of Zatoichi or yokai monsters, now we're going to put in this gigantic samurai god statue thing.
Right.
It's about 40 feet tall. And I was just watching the first one today, again, to review a little bit for this discussion. Daimajin, for all you kids out there, was a trilogy of films that came out in 1966 from Daiei. And they concerned a vengeful sort of samurai god. He was, 40, 50 foot tall samurai monster with a very scary green, very angry Kirk Douglas face.
Yeah.
With the chin,
Yes.
Incredible. But the score was by Akira Ifukube, right?
Yeah.
So it's got this kind of Godzilla sonorousness to it,
Yes, there's a little element of that.
Like, it has that same kind of Godzilla feel in the music. So it's got that grandeur of music happening, and in the same kind of scale of like this huge. But he's not a lizard; he's a giant stone samurai.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's true. It's an interesting meshing of styles.
But that's what I love about all those films is that they all kind of had this wonderful samurai wrapper. And then various things like Candy Center, whether it's
sure,
a blind swordsman or a giant, samurai.
The formula is identical in all of them. Is that you've got this, these villagers in these feudal towns who are being taken advantage of by the local yakuza or the land barons, wherever they are, exploited, terrorized, raped, and then they need an avenger. And whether the avenger is Zatoichi or the yokai monsters or Daimajin, that's the satisfaction you get, is that they come to the rescue.
Right, totally.
I remember kick to see the different varieties,
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing the Daimajin movies, the first one especially on TV after I had watched all the Godzilla movies,
right,
and seeing that one and feeling like, we always see what happens when those kaiju come and they wreak havoc, but when that monster, wreaks havoc on the town and gets revenge. And especially with that Ifukube music, the horror element is just amped. And the last 20 minutes of Daimajin is just terrifying.
And also because he's not quite so gigantic, there's something more personal in your face when he picks up a guy he's looking right at him. Like, I mean, it's just so well done. The effects are really good. Yeah. All three movies are great. And all three movies kind of like have that last 20 minutes where it's like, he's just kicking ass,
It's so funny. Matt, you brought that up. I think I may have seen it at the same time because I saw it on Creature Features in Northern California. And I kind of expected like a Godzilla film, but Daimajin, he's shorter than
Yeah,
Godzilla,
yeah.
like
Yes.
Sean brought up. And it's true. He is big, but not gigantic. And there is something when he can have a person in his hand.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it builds.
Yeah.
And of course, it's beautiful. And as
Really
a
well
kid,
done.
at first I was a little irritated. First,
Right, because you wanted like,
It takes a
right.
long time to get to him.
yeah,
too.
Sean,
Yes.
but you know what? I stuck with it. And my God, when you got to that 20 minutes and the end, oh my gosh, I was so excited. And it was like, man, I wanted to get, at that time, I wanted to get a figure
Yeah,
of
yeah.
that character. But of course, back in the 70s, there wasn't anything that I could get.
No.
But,
I've
but
got
there are
one.
figures now.
I mean, we all have them
we
now.
all have them
Yes,
now.
We all
yes,
have
Pat,
multiple
yes.
figures.
I got
now.
one. I guess where I got it.
Where'd you get it, buddy?
A buddy named Matt Weinhold went to Japan and got it for me.
Nice.
Oh, what a
I still
guy.
got it right in there.
What a
on my
guy.
shelf.
It's full
I
circle.
don't have a whole shelf full of them like you, but I got one right there.
Oh,
Well,
I mean,
that's-
I love that movie. And then the other thing too about Daimajin is that it's a supernatural entity. So it's
Yes,
not
yes.
just Godzilla. It's not a creature
Right.
Yeah.
that is vulnerable really
It's
in
like-
any way.
It's a
There's no,
possessed statue.
that thing
Yeah.
is not done until it's done.
Yeah.
Right.
And wouldn't you say, Matt, look, if you are a fan of the classic Godzilla films and you haven't seen this, I'd say check this out.
Oh,
Oh,
without a
absolutely.
doubt.
It's
Yes.
really neat. And again, it is not quite like a Godzilla film, but
It's a samurai movie. It's really a
Yes.
samurai melodrama
Yes, Sean.
Yeah.
Yes.
with
Yeah,
a
it's a samurai
giant
film.
vengeful statue in it. Yeah.
Right.
Don't go in with expectations.
Yeah.
Go in
yeah.
there and just experience the movie and
Yeah.
the story, because all of it is really engaging and rewarding.
Yeah.
It surprised
yeah.
me as a kid when I saw it. And it's beautifully
And
done.
the action is great all the way through.
Yeah.
The samurai stuff is
It's
fantastic.
good. Yeah. It's
The
really good.
cinematography.
Beautiful. All
Yeah.
three movies, I think.
Yeah,
Yes,
all
I
those
agree.
Daiei films, all those Daiei pictures of the mid '60s. There's great production
Gorgeous.
values, great directors, great natural, locations, natural, beautiful scenery.
Yeah.
And I let me just add that if anybody's listening to this and wants to see this, like right now, it's on Amazon Prime right now.
Oh,
No
Nice.
way.
I just checked earlier today. Yeah, it's the IMDb tie-in, so you have to watch there's some commercials they stick in there, unfortunately. But you can see it, and for a lot of these films, that's the thing is, can I
Yeah.
see it or can I?
Right.
And is it the Japanese version or the American dub?
I didn't. I just happened to search for it today on Amazon to see if you could get it, and they said, "Oh, it's on Amazon Prime."
both
I think,
both are okay, but I prefer always usually the
Yeah.
Japanese.
And I
Yeah,
think
you want to see it
it's,
with in the Japanese. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Arrow Films. I think that the Blu-ray company. I think it's Arrow that put out a Blu-ray
Oh yeah.
set.
Yeah.
A really and there's an earlier set too that's really good. I mean, they are
Mill
available.
Creek, I think.
Mill
Mill Creek,
Creek,
yeah, but they're
yeah.
pretty good. Yeah,
And they're
but
good. Those are nice
beautiful
prints.
movies. Yeah.
They're fine.
There's another. Speaking of Dai Studios, there's another '60s Dai horror film that's really weird. Again, and that just kind of in a category by itself that I really like from 1968 called The Snake Girl and the Silver-Haired Witch. You know about this
Ooh.
one, Patrick? It's
It sounds familiar. I if I saw it, it was a long time ago.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
really-
think I know this one.
This is one that Noriaki Yasuda directed it, and it's kind of like a little bit of like a children's story, or like it's from the point of view of a little girl who like was in an orphanage. Then she's actually brought to her estranged family, like her actual family. So she doesn't know this family because she was an orphan in an orphanage, and now they find her, and she's brought to this house with this weird family. She's got like a mom who's like has amnesia, this very cruel sister who like treats her terribly and who has something weird going on with snakes, and a dad who's experimenting with snakes. And then there's like this crazy, creepy white-haired witch who's coming after her. It's so bizarre, but it's that kind of movie where it's like part of it feels like it's aimed at younger kids, but then there's like some really horrific stuff in it and just outrageous, bizarre things. But it's black and white. It's really well done though. It's another movie that's kind of, I think it was Turner Classics or somewhere that ran it, and it's Dai Studios in 1968. It's really cool.
That director did all the Gamera films.
That's what it was. Yeah, like I think he had directed the first Gamera movie, then he made this movie. I don't think it was quite a big of a hit, and then he ended up doing all the string of most of the Gamera sequels. Yeah, but this is a very different kind of movie. It's like this kind of creepy, weird, outrageous kids horror film in a way. It's where a snake girl and the silver-haired witch.
I'm gonna check that one out. Thanks.
Yeah.
I know that there is a whole thing about white or silver hair. Again, we're talking about women's hair, and there was a I think it was a Hong Kong film called The Bride with the White Hair. And
Right.
That's a whole thing. So there it is.
What's the is there any particular meaning behind that, or?
I think it's just, again, it's one of those folkloric kind of things, maybe a woman who was frightened and her hair turned white. I really couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
That's what I tell people.
It's so funny, the whole white hair thing. I mean, Marilyn Monroe had her hair kind of colored almost white for a 7-year itch. So it's kind of weird, but of course it's up a little bit. It's not like flowy stuff, but when did that whole happen? We went.
Yeah. What scared her? The Kennedys.
No. Actually in that film, they went to see The Creature from the Black Lagoon. It's in the film.
That's right.
So anyway.
How about Gokei Body Snatcher from Hell?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I tried to watch that again. I went back, I pulled it out of the shelf, and oh man, I don't know what I was thinking. I couldn't. That was
really. Oh, I love that movie.
That
really?
That movie has such a nasty streak.
It's
every character
nasty
is like,
piece of work.
Every character is nasty, but yeah, I love that movie. It's so creepy and bizarre. And a great double feature with that movie is same year, same studio, Shochiku, I think, a movie called Genocide.
Oh yeah, that's great too.
It's also known in America as War of the Insects.
Yeah,
it's another movie which is like nasty people. It's harder to try to explain the plot. It's very difficult, but it involves an H bomb that is dropped but doesn't explode. And it's kind of lost, and the military is looking for it. Huh. Meanwhile, there's like these entomologists working on an island, and there's these insects. Hordes of insects attacking people. It's really bizarre and just apocalyptic. It has the same feel as Gokei. It really does, and it's worth checking out. It's crazy.
Well, now if we're talking about nasty people, on your list you had, Pat, Matango.
Oh yes.
I thought of you, Matt. I thought that would be some common ground there.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And not only just because we've taken mushrooms together.
That's that's a whole nother story.
So some of us might remember this under a different title, like what
Attack
James
of the Mushroom People.
Attack of the Mushroom
Americanized version, right?
Right.
That one, you talk about a weird vibe, a sort of a sick kind of weird, like with Gokei, the similar kind of miasma vibe. There's just like this disease in the air, and that whole film.
The way that boat is just covered in film with that fungus, even like the sounds in the forest outside, like everything about the movie. It's one of the most atmospheric. Ishiro Honda directed it, and I really love that movie because it's so dreamlike and nightmarish, and you're watching these people just gradually lose their humanity.
But Sean, what is it, when you hear the title Attack of the Mushroom People? Can you explain to listeners, like, what is it about exactly?
Yeah, there's these passengers on this ship. They're kind of going on a cruise, but they're all very shallow, selfish, greedy people. This cast of characters. And they shipwreck on this island, and there's nobody there, but they find another older ship that's been there forever, and it's all covered in like this fungus. The forest has all this strange vegetation. There's mushrooms growing everywhere, and they take refuge in this old ship and realize that they're running out of food, and they have to find something to eat. Meanwhile,
and the ship is scary.
Very, very. The production design is great, and they find that there are other beings walking around. They have flashes of these kind of mutated people they think are the survivors of that previous ship, but they run out of food, and they basically have to start eating. Some of the cast think, well, just eat the mushrooms, but they're like, you don't know, with mushrooms, who knows? But they run out of the canned food, right? And they start eating mushrooms, and they start changing. First, it's kind of just psychologically, then it's slowly physical. But it's just one of those movies when I was a little kid, late night television, watching this thing. And it's like, it really is creepy, and it's so dripping with atmosphere.
Growing up, yes.
Really
very much so, yes. And I remember growing up, and Larry will agree, and I don't know if he agrees on the film, but when we were growing up, we watched Creature Features.
Yes, we did.
And it was on Creature Features, and it was always sold to us as this terrible movie.
Yes.
This horrible
It's
movie.
always said.
It's
Yes.
so terrible. And
And
I remember as a kid sitting down like, oh, okay, I'm expecting this terrible movie. And I sit down and watch it, and this thing is scary, atmospheric, really well acted, in my opinion.
All your classic Toho character actors.
Everyone's there.
At their best. You know, Kumi Mizuno, Akira Kubo.
Yeah. Everybody's there. You got the who's who of Toho. And then production designed, everything about it. And even down to when you start to see the gradual change from the moment someone eats a mushroom.
Right.
Every part of that is spooky and weird.
It's great. To me, those films fall into that Toho quadrilogy of Asia horror films from the 60s. You had Matanga, which is my favorite. You had the H-Man, which is also by Yashiro Honda, which is basically this radioactive blob that was created from H-bomb tests that are dissolving people in Tokyo.
Yeah, it's fun. It's not scary, really, but it's
not
as
fun. It's creepy. It's inventive.
And it's creepy. It's creepy.
Yeah, and then the two considered lesser ones, but still are interesting, is the Human Vapor. Which are also Ishiro Honda, which is more like it's almost a smaller story because it's kind of like a guy who falls in love with this woman and then he's experimenting on it, can turn into vapor. So he's robbing banks to give her money. And it's really weird. And then probably the most
women
and the most obscure one, I think, is Secret of the Telegian, which is kind of like the old matter transmitting device where a guy is transporting himself into a different place to get revenge on people. But they're all, that's about Jun Fukadu directing it. But they're all kind of from that same era, like late 50s, early 60s. And they all have, a lot of them have scenes that take place in like nightclubs in Tokyo, and like seedy underground and gangsters. And like, there's just a certain
I wanted to be part of it.
Yes, they all kind of fall in the same universe. And they're just something really cool about them. And very much a kind of a Toho 60s stamp on them, but I love all those movies. I think they're really fun. They, you think of the Toho kaiju films that were all coming out at the same time. They were churning those out at that time, but this is that other subgenre that Toho put out, which I think is just as viable and interesting.
I think it illustrates a point that Attack of the Mushroom People is a silly title that's just meant to cash in on some, drive-in marketing.
Right.
But the bigger point is that we were brought up as Americans on a kind of mentality that if you compare, American entertainment to overseas entertainment, almost it doesn't matter from what region or what country or continent, that America was a puritanically developed culture, and a lot of other countries were not. And so what you get is, we'll get Attack of the Mushroom People, but what you get overseas is Matango. What you get overseas is something exotic. You're being introduced to a different mythology, a different cultural history.
Surrealism too, and just like,
it's completely unpredictable to the kind of upbringing that we had, being weaned on American product.
Right. That's what makes it so odd and stands out so much to us, It's,
And to have an entire cast of pretty unlikable people too. And then
but that goes back to like Goke. Goke is the same way. It's like that whole idea of like these like despicable characters are going to get their comeuppance in some way,
Yeah.
No, I love those films.
Now, the whole Puritan ethic, Puritan influence, I discuss a lot in my book. That's the fundamental difference, and that's for me a great appeal of the Asian horror or Asian extreme cinema. Is that they don't have that. They don't have the. I mean, there's a certain Christian influence in Korea, but there's all these older influences of Buddhism and Confucianism and various others that do not have that. That they were not founded by pilgrims. These countries, and they go back thousands of years. And so there will be a moment in a film where there's no Judeo-Christian sort of balance to things at all. It's whatever's going to happen. You're going to be thrown into outer darkness, and that's it.
I mean, yay! My very first visit to Tokyo, I was in a hotel that was above a 7-Eleven, and I went into the 7-Eleven, and there was a magazine right in front of me where you're expected to look up a schoolgirl's skirt. And I'm just like, and this was not a porno magazine. This was just like an average, and
it was their highlights.
Yeah. The thing is, for better or worse, you're in a different environment. You're in a different cultural environment, and all bets are off. And the thing about, in particular, Japanese exploitation films, particularly from the 60s, for a culture that feels like it needs to pixelate genitalia in its porn,
right?
They indulge in a lot of very, very
they're quite transgressive for the time. I mean, you talk
about
there's two rules. There's only two things that are censored traditionally in Japan: no penetration and don't talk about the emperor. Those are the two things.
Wait, don't talk about. You mean
especially don't talk about penetrating the emperor.
Yeah. So is it okay that while you're having sex to lie back and think of the emperor?
Not at all.
Right.
No good. Okay.
No. Right. But that is, there is a total latitude of anything that your imagination can extend to. Like in manga, there's like a million different kinds of manga you can get, including tentacle manga, and I think you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah,
hentai.
Tentacle.
You don't
manga?
have hentai, that equivalent in our culture. It just isn't there. There's no market for it.
Right.
I mean, homegrown tentacle porn.
No, I mean, in today's culture, I can't even imagine how that would go over.
Yeah, exactly. Certainly not today.
No one will take that meeting. Believe me.
But that's the elevator pitch for that.
I pitched a theme park, but
there's also a whole subgenre of torture films. Again, especially in the 60s. I just saw one called Shogun's Joy of Torture that Toei made in 1968. That's got a scene of and you're talking about bondage, S&M. You're talking about women getting tied up. One woman
I reviewed that in Asia Shock, by the way.
One woman it's dipped in a bathtub that they fill full of loaches, like these eel creatures, and she's screaming. There's another scene where a woman is crucified upside down in shallow water. So
in the beach.
So she's gonna die when the high tide comes in, and it's horrifying shit. Really? And you've got samurai like whipping people who are tied up, and they're eviscerating their bodies, and it's extremely graphic. And we're talking about 1965, 1968. It's like, whoa.
There is a kinky streak, traditional Japanese, some strata of that culture. You're gonna find a lot of kink, a lot of more kink than you would find in other cultures. I don't know why. But I've come across it time and again with looking at these films. It's like, wow, there's an audience there that will look at that stuff all day long.
Is it? I mean, I know this has been discussed before, but the idea of a repressed culture and it kind of bubbles up in another area.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's absolutely right. There's an old expression in Japan: the nail that sticks up gets hammered down, and what that means is basically, if you try to be an individual, if you try to, be different, you're going to get hammered down culturally, especially as a kid. But what they do is that they leave these culturally, there are these pressure valves, in these extreme forms of entertainment, like manga or film, where you can go to the nth degree and explore, get as dark and weird and nasty as you want.
Right.
Because you can't, because you have these restrictions in the culture.
As long as you make it to work on time the next day.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember reading a book that James gave me about Japanese culture, and that like when you go out with a group of people and you're going to go out drinking and it's a bunch of work people, that when you first go out, there's like one mode of behavior where everyone is very polite and they kind of pick a leader and everyone exchanges their cards, and it's very kind of almost regimented and polite. And then the drinks start flowing, and then that's called a different thing. And that's when now it's okay to talk about your boss and, get a little loose. And I wish I could remember the terms. I try to remember them every time, but there's like a term for each mode of behavior. But just that idea sounds strange to me of just the, like, okay, once we have drinks, now,
that's
now we're
off.
going by a different operating program.
Right.
But again, that's
interesting.
very civilized if you think about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We're gonna have this tacit understanding going into this that we're gonna all get bombed, and how it gets when we all know how we get bombed, and it's just like this free zone, this hall pass, I guess.
Yeah.
There were some
Again,
times at Comic-Con that were like that. If I remember
And again, think about the puritanical culture that we're in. If we go out for drinks with friends or even with work colleagues, we all certainly with work friends, we're going to try to keep our shit together, right? We're not going to get
right. You're right. Well, yeah, you have all these.
It's always hated.
You have all these neuroses and like you're paranoid about right. Yeah, right. Not behaving correctly.
Cultural approach.
It reminds me of a scene in Midnight Cowboy where John Voight sees a drunk passed out on the sidewalk in Manhattan, and he can't believe that everybody's just walking by him. My first trip to Tokyo, I was maybe 7 p.m. in the Ginza district, and I see this salaryman passed out on a car. Thousands of people just walking right over him. I'm just like, I don't believe this. And there's just something about it that's just, I gotta say, it's kind of cool because it's so freaking different. I mean,
it's like Star Trek. It's like the Red Hour. Like,
Festival.
Yeah. And like, so Carrie and I were in Kawasaki. We're trying to find the Ultraman bar, Kaiju Sakaba.
Of course you are.
And so we get there, walk out into Kawasaki, and everything's fine. Everyone seems to be very well behaved. And we go in, we have some drinks, we have dinner. It's lovely. I buy way too many things in the gift shop. Okay, great. We leave. We got to get the last train out back to Tokyo. And we walk out on the street, and it's like someone replaced the town. Like it is, everybody is just, people are falling over and singing. And then we go to the train station, and that is unbelievable because it's almost like watching like a Max Sennett comedy from every direction. People are falling downstairs. Another guy is puking on the train tracks, and another guy, and it's just everywhere.
Gosh.
And then the train shows up, and the door opens, and there's a pool of vomit. And I'm just like, awesome.
Wow.
Hey, if you're going to do it, do it.
Right.
But look, I just want to point out, look, when we went to Japan, we had a wonderful time and everything was pretty clean. I'm just right, Matt.
But
Matt, it's not all like dirty panties in a vending machine or something.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? If you get the right guide. But there were a couple times, Larry, you got to admit, where I think it was after hours, and I remember coming up from a train station, and there was a guy literally pissing in the street, and it was like Pat said. Everyone just goes,
I don't remember that. James, do you remember that? Did we capture that on film on our film journal?
I think that was one of the few things we did not capture on film, actually.
Right.
I don't remember that.
I also just to tie back in the whole S&M thing is a lot of these films, the scenes involved, and this ties back into Yotsuya as well. You're talking about violence that's directed toward women more often than not.
Yeah.
That women are subject to this, and in the J horror, again more often than not, the ghost, the vindictive ghost, is a woman.
True.
So you have a pattern of women who are, coming back to seek revenge.
After subjugated,
the objects of terror, which, a lot has been said about this, academically about, what it means culturally. But what I want to bring it down to is a major breakthrough film from Miike from 1999,
right.
Audition.
Yeah.
Audition, where you have a, I think he's a widower, and and he wants to meet a woman. So his friend convinces him to hold these bogus auditions so he can meet a suitable new wife.
But it's not done like in a mean, crass way. It's like he's lonely and his friend wants to help him out. He's like, you should just, it's not done.
But it is duplicitous, and so
Yeah.
but it's also, let's face it, it's traditionally a very male dominated culture that's been kind of going through a lot of changes in the last few decades with women becoming more involved in the workplace. But without giving anything away, and if you're listening to this show, you probably know at least a little bit about this film.
Spoiler alert.
Things take turns, and they're very intriguing and eventually terrorizing turns for this poor man. But part of the brilliance of this is that you can see it from different sides. You can sort of see it from his side, and as sick and twisted as it becomes, you can also see it from the woman's side. And that's what makes a great film, is that you can see it on many different levels. Right. And Tarantino himself said that this was like his favorite film.
Right.
And the actress who plays the woman, the object of affection in this, Ihai Shina, ended up becoming, she was originally a fashion model, but she ended up becoming a kind of a femme fatale in a lot of horror films in Japan. Vampire Girl versus Frankenstein Girl, Tokyo Gore Police, and Hell Driver. She had a little career for herself.
Also, Tokyo Gore Police.
Yeah.
I throw that in.
And a really remarkable film that did break through. A lot of people saw it and
True. Yes.
Got the whole Criterion treatment and everything, and made a name for Takashi Miike, which he didn't really have overseas before.
Yeah. You never look at Piano Wire the same way again.
No.
I stopped playing the piano because of that.
Yeah.
I think his other masterpiece was probably Ichi the Killer. Anybody seen that?
Yes, sure. Yeah.
I know of that one. I've not seen that one.
You probably should check that out. That was based on a manga, by the way. And I did want to make a point about manga movies.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Because that's kind of a shortcut to what I would call Asia Shock or Asia Extreme Cinema. Find a movie or a series of movies based on a manga, because that is your straight shot to the most outrageous film experience, Asian film experience you're going to have. Because if you think about it, Ichi the Killer.
Well, Parasite with a Y.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That one, I have a sidebar in my book that just breaks out a whole bunch of them. There was a Hong Kong picture called Riki-Oh. You ever see Riki-Oh, the story?
I'm telling you, I've been waiting for you to bring this up. That movie.
That was a manga. That is a manga movie.
How would you describe? To me, that movie I describe like as a martial arts gore movie, kind of, right?
It's an over the top. I mean, I review it in the book, and the first thing I say about it is, imagine the ultimate fighter. What would he be? He's so strong that if he punched you in the stomach, his fist would go right through your body.
Right.
Yeah. If he punched you in the head, your head would shatter and to the wall. You're right. That's the level of what we're talking about in this movie.
Right.
Oh, there is a scene where a guy punches another guy in the stomach. His fist goes right through his stomach, and all this blood starts pouring out of his stomach.
Good Lord.
And that's a movie where I'm talking about how that doesn't have the cinematography and the production value. It's not elegant.
No, it's a cruder, kind of more drive-in movie feel to it, really.
But it's perfect in what it is.
Midnight, let's say midnight. Be kind and say a midnight movie.
Yeah.
It almost feels like Evil Dead 2 seemed to have a huge impact on directors in Japan.
Yeah. Right. Like over the top, kind of almost cartoony pulp editing, and just kind of very stylized.
Yeah. But I mean, you've got people being strangled with intestines, getting their heads punched off. And then there's a character that even basically turns into the Hulk. It's just got, but like, just when you think, okay, wow, they've really hit the pinnacle here with the gore. Nope. Keep watching.
Yeah.
Oh, and James, a lot of great eye stuff. Pat James hates
eye violence.
Listeners, yes.
There's a character with a false eye, which he keeps mints in. By the way, he freshens his breath. He takes his eye out, pops a mint.
Use that socket.
I don't mind that. I don't mind the cartoon stuff, but when you get into like endangering the eye, I get a little squeamish, and audition was a little tough for me in that.
Oh, right.
That's right. Yeah.
Pat, are you
we
familiar?
all have our issues,
One of the things that's really interesting about this is that again, unlike a lot of American films or many American films in the way that they're marketed and put out, the auteur theory in Asian cinema really holds ground because we're talking about directors and their visions and their consistency. Now, Pat, are you familiar with a director named Noboru Iguchi?
Give me a title because I'm not sure. That doesn't ring a bell.
Machine Girl?
Oh yeah, I've seen Machine Girl, sure.
Yeah, he's a master at this sort of current trend of like splatter, blood gushing, surreal imagery, low budget, but cartoony and really fun. And I'll throw out some of the titles. One of his first features was an adaptation of the Umezu manga called Cat Eye Boy, which is kind of a yokai.
Yeah.
But he went on to do Machine Girl, Robo Geisha.
Robo Geisha.
Right, yeah.
Right.
That's genius right there.
Wow.
Karate Robo Zaborgar, which was an updated feature of the Tokusatsu Zaborgar, Denjin Zaborgar series, which
is kind of funny. That's
has to be seen. I love it. It has to be seen to be believed. Mutant Girls Squad, Dead Sushi, where sushi come to life and attack the restaurateurs.
Oh, Matt, can you imagine that one?
How do they win? You just eat them.
Oh wait, so James, are these
I've got to see that one.
Like done super broad as comedies or
yes?
Okay.
Yes,
Okay,
for the most
They're
part,
real
yeah.
broad. They're super broad.
Wait, what's the sushi one again, James? What's the sushi one?
Dead Sushi from 2012.
Dead Sushi.
And
Matt, we got to see that.
I know. Yes, we do.
Along with Zaborgar, I think one of the best ones, it was certainly the best title, Zombie Ass Toilet of the Dead.
Now that one I have not heard.
Oh my!
That one I have not heard.
Wait, this is a double feature.
Pat, have you seen this?
Let's do it, Larry.
No, you stumped me on that one. I've seen Machine Girl. I've seen Robo Geishas. That's about it.
I've read the novel. I have not seen the film.
Matt, I sense a Monster Party, Asian Shock Cinema, get together where we have sushi and we watch the dead sushi and then what is it, James? The ass what?
Zombie Ass Toilet of the Dead. It's about a group of young schoolgirls, of course, that go off into the woods, and one of them wants to stay thin, so she swallows a tapeworm. But it's a tapeworm that's found inside of a fish from a questionable waters. And it ends up, there's a zombie infestation. There's an outhouse with zombies living underneath the muck, shall we say. And
oh my gosh.
It's extremely scatological. There's a lot of fart imagery. And it has to be seen to be believed. But I do recommend it. It's actually more fun than I made it sound. It's even more fun than that.
Why didn't I think of it?
Yeah, Disney is currently developing a remake, I'm sure.
No.
Hey. Well, this isn't Japanese, but you brought up sushi. I'm a big fan of the movie Biozombie. You know this, Pat, right?
Oh, yeah.
1998 Hong Kong zombie film. And it's kind of what it really is it's a Dawn of the Dead parody, but it's done like in one of those stripped down tiny Hong Kong malls. And it's these two guys, Woody Invincible and Crazy Bee. And there are these guys who sell bootleg VCDs and they gamble and they steal from the other shops. And of course, there's a bio weapon that gets loose and turns people into zombies, and they have to hold up in their little tiny mall. But in this mall, there's a sushi bar. And so the sushi chef guy ends up becoming a zombie. And now he's serving sushi to the zombies. Very special human nigiri.
Oh, that's great.
So like he's a zombie and he's making up the sushi and there's a finger on the little thing of rice. There you go.
That's great.
It's ridiculous, but that's a really fun movie.
Wow.
I tend to stay away from zombie films. It's just not a genre that turns me on.
Have you seen One Cut of the Dead?
No.
I think you'd like that.
I don't do zombies. What can I tell you?
But what if it's a good zombie movie?
Well,
what if
see again? For my money, there's very, very few and far between of that.
Oh,
It just doesn't. Zombies. I'm not a zombie guy. What can I tell you?
See,
Sorry.
what's great about One Cut of the Dead, though, is that it's not actually a zombie movie.
It's really doesn't have that much to do with the zombie movie.
It's a movie about filmmaking.
Yeah.
Is this an Asian film?
This is a Japanese movie about the filming of a zombie movie, and it's actually quite uplifting, wouldn't you say, James?
All right.
I think what it's really about is the challenges of filming a movie in one take, where everything has to be so perfectly choreographed and nothing can go wrong.
Right.
And you've got these filmmakers who are under such pressure to make it work on live television.
Right.
And so you see the pressure that they're under. And first you see the film itself, and it's like, okay, well, it's a pretty typical zombie movie, although it's in one take, which is
It's in one take, yeah.
But then you get the making of it, which is to see all the behind the scenes stuff. There was a
Which
British
is glorious. It's so good.
What's it called again?
One Cut of the Dead.
One Cut of the Dead. It reminds me a lot of a British play called Noises Off.
I was just about to say that. Yes.
Noises
Michael
Off, yeah.
Frayn.
Yes.
Which is the first part of it is you see this play with all these hilarious hijinks, but then you see what it takes to put the play on backstage and how extreme that is.
Right.
And crazy. And that's a lot more entertaining than the play itself.
Right. And so there's things when you're first seeing the one cut film in the beginning, there are weird moments where you go, what's going on there? And then you see the behind the scenes of what led up to that moment. And it's just so much fun.
That's cool.
I think that would be the one exception for your zombie rule.
And they made a sequel called
Did they really?
One Cut of the Dead in Hollywood.
Oh my!
Where they bring back most of the cast, and it's shorter. It's only like less than an hour long, but it's supposed to take place in Hollywood. There's the Hollywood sign, but it's all filmed in Japan. And it's not really supposed to take place in LA, but it's all sort of surface.
I'm not so sure about that.
Well, after seeing the first one and appreciating the first one for what it is, it's not necessarily something you want to revisit.
Okay.
Although I'm sure it's fine, it's good. It's just hard to sort of throw yourself back into.
Okay.
Matt, you brought up a great one. I mean, Pat's brought up so many. I mean, this is so cool just listening to you guys. I mean, we can this thing is the topic is so huge.
It is huge.
You know, I mean, we could go on and on.
We could. And once again, we have.
But what do you say? What do we say? We do a little lightning round, and we're gonna have to visit this topic again. But why don't we throw some titles out there that would be cool to check out? Okay, what do you say?
Sounds good. Go. Pat,
go ahead, Pat.
Give us a couple.
Okay. Phone from 2002. It's a Korean film. It's you've heard of a haunted videotape.
Right.
You've heard of
Yes.
a haunted,
like one missed call.
How about a haunted cell phone?
Ooh.
So it's,
I went Gildersleeve on you.
A vengeful lady ghost is calling you on her cell phone in 2002 in Korea.
Oh, okay. That sounds great.
I'm pretty sure my cell phone is haunted, but that's another story.
I think it's just old. All right, you got another one?
Yeah, I do. Speaking of haunted appliances, how about your computer? Your computer is haunted, Matt.
Ooh.
Oh no, not again.
Pulse. There's a movie called Pulse.
Pulse.
I've heard of this one.
So good.
Hayashi Kurosawa from 2001. It's ghosts in your computer on the coming in from the internet. Hell has filled up, and the ghosts are pouring into the internet.
I know. It's almost like the way that movie progresses. It's almost like a really serious version of Ghostbusters.
Really?
Yeah. You could pitch it like that.
Yeah.
Very, very dark, very somber. You know anything about Hayashi Kurosawa? He's not kidding around. He's a very serious filmmaker.
Yeah.
He made another film called Cure, which is about a guy who may be the angel of death. He might be the devil, but he knows how to hypnotize you with just a couple of words. And he's causing people to go out and do serial murders. But what's interesting is that it's a different person each time. So how can it be a serial murder if each person that commits the murder is a different individual? And that what links them all is this individual who's like the master hypnotist.
Huh.
Interesting.
Sure.
That's so good. All right, who's next?
Well, I have one that I think, Matt, maybe we were thinking of to talk about before. We have to mention this movie because it's just so outrageous and bizarre. And it's a pretty famous film, but it's just a Toho film from 1977 called House.
Oh yes, this has come up before. Yeah,
Just saw it. I was just reviewing it today.
Really? Yeah. Now,
Yes.
Now this was this also based on manga?
I don't think so, but I know that the filmmaker that made it, it was his first film. He came from advertising, and he specialized in those really crazy Japanese commercials where things are exploding and people are flying, and it's just Matt, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
That's
how I live my life.
Japanese commercial.
I mean, this movie is so. I mean, the basic plot is this group of schoolgirls visit this one girl's aunt's house, which is going to see her aunt and going to spend the weekend at her country house. But they find that the aunt is dead and the place is haunted. But the movie is so hard to categorize because it is at times truly horrific and scary. Other times it's completely ridiculous and over the top. It's a comedy. There's candy. There's animation.
Oh, the color.
I think there's musical numbers, right? It's kind of musical, kind of
Each one of the girls has like a different theme. So you got Melody, and she's the musician, and she sings. And
their names
Kung
are
Fu,
like,
and then she's the fighter. And
you got a girl's name is Kung Fu. One girl's name is Gorgeous. One girl's name is Fantasy. And
she's
they're all like archetypes. Yeah, and it's but they're all kind of picked off one by one by this these weird spirits in this house, and there's a cat that's kind of connected to it, and it's just hard to explain it, but it is so trippy.
Yeah, those are our nicknames too.
Yes.
Funny.
Yes. But it's definitely a crazy movie, but I really enjoy it. Another one that's very different but strange from Shochiku Studio called The Living Skeleton.
Yeah, that one's great.
From
that was fun.
It's like there's kind of the seaside town that's haunted by the ghosts of a ship's crew that was murdered by these kind of modern day pirates. And it's so bizarre because it is really creepy, but at the same time, some of the effects are kind of crude, but it somehow works. Like the skeleton, there's these skeletons that pop up, like these floating skeletons, but the skeletons are, I don't know if it's purposely, but they're not made to look that realistic. They're kind of
not at all.
But I'm sure that's intentional, but it just adds to the oddness of it.
I agree.
It is creepy. It's very atmospheric, black and white. And,
it's from the 60s, right?
Yeah, 1968. Yeah. And
Ko Nishimura, was that the guy that starred in that?
I think so. Yeah. The director is Hiroshi Matsuno, but just very, very cool. Criterion put out this great set of Shochiku Studio films. It was Living Skeleton and
Gokei and
Gokei, X from Outer Space. Yeah. But yes,
great
Living
set.
Skeleton. Yeah. But that's another one that is just definitely worth checking out.
I believe the star of that was a guy named Ko Nishimura, who also you may remember from the Hanzo the Razor films.
Okay.
He was Hanzo's boss.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
He was also in an Akira Kurosawa film called The Bad Sleep Well.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Which was a loose remake of Hamlet. Very loose.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he played a character that Toshiro Mifune's character literally drives insane with fear.
Wow.
Anyway,
one more too that I think is pretty popular is from 1973 Toho, Lady Snowblood.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And really good. Yeah, I've not seen the sequel.
Lady Snowblood films.
Yeah. Okay, I've not seen the sequel, but I love the first one. And basically, this woman who's kind of she's trained for years to be like kind of the ultimate instrument of revenge against this family or against these people that destroyed her family, and she just goes about it. Yeah, methodically getting rid of each guy.
That's Meiko Kaji. She's a beautiful.
Oh my God, she's stunning.
Yeah. And she also made a series of 6 films called Female Prisoner Scorpion.
Sounds good. I want to see that.
Those are start off as sort of women in prison kind of pictures, but gradually and again another manga based series. And she eventually she's so good that they wind up getting her out of prison, and she runs around and kills people and does. She's those are her 2 most famous. She did a number of. She did Stray Cat Rock, I think, for there's several.
Oh yeah.
Nikatsu, as well as she was a Toei girl. As well.
Okay.
She did a lot of stuff, but classy lady. She's still around. She has her own website.
Really? Lady Snowblood's amazing. She's amazing.
See both of those.
Yeah.
I have
You
to
got
get
it.
a Lady Snowblood figure. There's a company called Alfrex that does these
Really?
12-inch figures.
They should do that. Yeah.
They did Zatoichi, they did Lone Wolf and Cub, and I have those, but I still need to get the Lady Snowblood.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. All
All
right.
right. So those are mine.
All right.
Cool.
James.
Well, we're talking about directors. There's a few. One of them, Kinji Fukusaku, who had an amazing, prolific career. He died in
Absolutely.
2003, but Battle Royale, he's
Of course,
right.
one of his great, which is an amazing, amazing film. If you haven't seen it, run, don't walk.
Really?
Yeah.
is.
Still holds up.
Beautifully.
But his career, he did the Green Slime.
I know.
Oh,
He did Virus. He did this Yakuza series called Battles Without Honor and Humanity.
Honor and Humanity. Yeah,
Which is
yeah.
amazing.
Tatakai.
Yeah, Message from Space. He did.
no.
He did the Japanese sequences for Tora Tora Tora. He's just this
Wow.
amazing filmmaker.
Pretty
Also-
versatile.
Yeah, and one of my favorite, Sion Sono, who did Suicide Club, which is probably his most famous film, his best known
That's in my
film,
book.
which is, and it's a very significant film.
That is one of those films. It's like defies explanation. It defies description. You just got to see it. What is up with the long roll of Peach's little pieces of skin stitched together that are like the size of a toilet roll piece?
And,
Imagine a giant toilet roll, but it's pieces of skin all stitched together, and that just appears out of nowhere and is never explained.
I'm in.
Well, and there's
Among a million other things.
well the
That's
woman
just-
the woman chopping the carrots on the, and then there's the
And then works her way up to her hand. Yeah.
and
Yes.
the mask
And how many
Subway.
24 girls that all hold hands and jump in front of the
Right.
J train in Shinjuku Station? And
yes
there's this
yeah
blood wave of blood that just hits everybody.
Wow.
yeah and
It's like-
a more recent series that he did that's available on Amazon Prime called Tokyo Vampire Hotel, which
Oh,
is
that's
definitely
great.
worth,
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. He's a really interesting filmmaker, and my favorite of his, which I've championed before, Love Exposure. It's like
Exposure is awesome.
it's a
That is a 4-hour film, and you'll never feel like it's 4. You feel like it was a half hour. 4 hours,
and it,
guys.
and
It's
it-
an
and it-
awesome film.
and it defies explanation. It's like
Once
it's
again.
hard to even describe why I love
Yeah.
this film so much.
Just
Right.
see it.
That's
what I say about those kind of. Just see it. Just go find your copy and just watch it. I'm not going to tell you anymore. Just watch it.
And another quirky filmmaker named Minoru Kawasaki, who does these absurd. His first one was Calamari Wrestler, where you have a wrestler walking around in a big squid costume, followed up by Executive Koala, Crab Goalkeeper, and also a sequel to the X from Outer Space called Monster X Strikes Back.
Sure. Right. Yeah.
Which is a comedy that also features a cameo by Beat Takeshi as a Daimajin creature. His most recent offering was a remake or a reboot of Planet Prince, the classic superhero sci-fi thing, which he did in 2021. And then finally, we can't not mention a few classics. Kaneko Shindo's Onibaba and Kuroneko.
Great.
I actually had those on my list here. Those are companion pieces. You should see them in a double feature if you can take the pacing. There's kind of more of a, like I say, a Kubrickian kind of pace, shall we say?
Right.
Slow burn. You should see them together because they both have the same basic structure of 2 women who become ghosts and then go on a rampage. But in one, they're like in the higher strata class. It's a class thing. They're in like the high class amongst the samurai. And in the other film, Onibaba, they're like kind of hard scrabble peasants out, kind of in the middle of a war-torn kind of situation where they're killing samurai, and
right.
That one
for money and stuff.
That one I particularly love.
Yeah.
Onibaba,
Yeah,
the imagery with that mask.
Yeah, and just the sweaty, hard, scratching lifestyle of what goes on in that movie. I just love.
Well, see, then again, you see the other one, Kuroneko, and you see the flip side of that, which is the sort of the beautiful floating world of the samurai, and they're doing up to the same
Wow.
same stuff,
Yeah. Yeah, no, those are great. Those are amazing.
And then
Cool.
finally, Mitsugushi's classic Ugetsu from 1953, which is also qualifying as a ghost story, that has to do with a family during wartime that's being taken advantage of, particularly the women and the trials that they're put through at the expense of the ambition of the men. Beautiful, beautiful story. 1953 Ugetsu.
All right, great.
Cool.
Larry?
Matt, why don't you go?
You don't have any?
You know what? My list has already been taken. And
okay.
I don't know as much as you guys, but what I've been
we already mentioned everything on his list. So
no,
Okay.
I actually have. I've been writing a list of. Damn, I got to see this. I got to.
Oh, good. Oh, that's the way it should
There's a
be.
lot going on here too. Me.
Yeah, that's the way it should be.
There's and this has just been such a joy. But Matt, I want to know what you got now. Can you give us a few here?
Sure. Okay. Well, I'll make this fast. The first one that comes to mind, and I may have brought it up before, but it's a film called The Wicked City. And it's 1992. It's a science fiction based on an anime. And it was directed by Peter Mack, produced by Choi Hark. And it is so bizarre. And it takes place in Hong Kong. And it's a conflict between these humans and then the raptors, who are these weird creatures who are almost demons, who are able to shapeshift. And they can look like humans, but then they turn into things like, there's one scene where a very beautiful woman turns into this crazy, terrifying spider creature.
Oh.
And that's wonderful. But then you think, once again, okay, that's about as crazy as it's going to get. But no, later on, one of the raptors becomes a female pinball machine. And then another one of the raptors is playing her. So it's like he's having sex with her. So he's like, getting all these scores on her. And she's like, So imagine a pinball machine with a head sticking out of it. And it's
what's this movie called?
It's called The Wicked City.
The Wicked City.
Jackie Chung and Ewan Wo Ping's in it. And then one of my favorite scenes is you'll see a man riding a half human, half motorcycle.
And goodness.
Trying to control this thing. And anyway, it's
Sounds
wonderful. It's wonderful. Wow. It is a tour de force of just insanity. And then I would also like to throw in this. I call this Asia Shock because when I saw these films as a kid, there were things in there that I thought I would never see, especially in a martial arts film. And so there are two films. There's the original and then there's the sequel. They're Jimmy Wang Yu films. One is called The One-Armed Boxer, which was released in the United States as The Chinese Professionals.
And
it's the story of, you got this one martial arts school against the other, the good martial arts school. There's the bad martial arts school. The leader of the good one, Tian Lung, who is Jimmy Wang Yu, he gets his arm chopped off, then runs, away and is brought back to health and taught to kill all the nerves in the remaining arm and gain this strength that allows him to go back and get revenge against not only the school, but a group of mercenaries that they've hired. And so the mercenaries, they are all different evil supervillains. And there are these Tibetan monks that are able to like blow up their bodies. And then there's a guy called the Kung Fu Beast, who's like this monster karate fighter. And it's just great. And then
this actor is actually one-armed guy, right?
He is not a one-armed guy. And in fact,
really?
When you watch the movies, there'll be a couple times where you'll see the arm in the back and you got to just say, I didn't see that.
Oh, okay.
Right.
And then I want to follow up with the sequel, which is considered a classic, and that would be Master of the Flying Guillotine.
That one, yes. That one I'm familiar with. That's a great one.
And that just really kind of takes place where the other one ended. And so the two monks, they're really Tibetan lamas. The master of those lamas comes back and he has this weapon called the flying guillotine, which is like a thing that you throw and it's on a chain. It's almost like a hat that hits you.
Well, there's a basket.
It's like a basket that then it lands on you, and then the basket is deployed.
And then when you pull on it,
it takes off your whole
neck
head.
has
the
collar has blades in it.
It's pretty ingenious.
And I've
Wow.
made one, and it works pretty well. Yeah.
You have to oil it every once in a while.
But it's sometimes it's even more fun when it's not oiled.
Oh, man.
Oil it with the blood of your enemies.
Yeah. Anyway,
There you go.
so
Yeah.
those are my two, and or three, I guess. And
Wow.
yeah, all of these movies I want to see. Every single one of them.
Yeah.
If I've seen
Yeah,
them, I
really.
want to see them again.
If I've learned anything from tonight, it's I have a huge list of new films that I have to try and see.
Right.
Because this has just been
Yeah.
such a joy. Pat, thank you so much for being with us tonight, man.
Yeah.
So
This
great
is
to
No
see you.
problem.
Oh my God. I mean, your knowledge on this topic is just amazing. Now, is there anything you're working on? Is there anything that our listeners can check out or?
Yeah, well, I've had a domain called cyberpat.com for many, many years. That's CYBERPAT, as in cyberpat.com.
Cool.
Right there, you can, there's links to my books. And also as Matt mentioned, I'm a musician and recently built a home studio, and I've been doing some recordings that I'm rather proud of. And so
Great
you
stuff.
can listen to some of
Nice.
my
Yeah.
stuff on there.
Nice.
So cyberpat.com, check it out.
Awesome.
You got it.
Good.
All right, Pat. Well, we'd love to have you on again if you ever want to come back, because
Yes.
that was fantastic.
Matt, we have to do
Yes,
this
sounds
again
good.
Yeah.
because there's still a lot of other stuff that
Oh, yes.
Pat needs to talk about. So
It's
we've
a
got to
rich
do this
genre.
again.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's raise our glasses
Yes.
Yes.
to the great Patrick Galloway and Asia Shock Cinema.
Cinema. Cheers. Woo.
Kampai. Time for a listener shout out.
Shout
Shout
out.
out. Shock, 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 shock.
This goes out to Tristan Curtis and his co-host Ryan, who
Yay!
are hosts of the upcoming podcast, The Finer Points Trivia Cast.
The
Nice.
finer
Aw.
points. Huh.
The Finer Points Trivia Cast. Tristan is one of the hosts of Tales from the Bridge, which is an existing podcast, a sci-fi podcast. Finer Points has not come out yet, but the reason I mention it is because Matt and I were fortunate enough to be invited to be guests on one of the
No
Yes,
way.
we were. Yeah.
Oh my
first
God.
episodes of Finer Points. It'll probably be dropping like late spring, early summer.
Yeah.
And
Copy.
Matt and I had a lot of fun.
Oh my
doing it.
God. Those guys were great. Just
They
really
were.
wonderful, hospitable.
But
But
yeah,
it was
they
really
were,
fun. They were great. And yeah, it was it was quite combative at times.
Really?
Not with
You-
them necessarily, but with some of the films that we disagreed upon.
Yeah.
Combative in a nice way, you know.
Right.
All
Yeah.
right. All right.
Yeah.
A healthy
different points,
debate.
A healthy
Different-
debate. Thank you.
different opinions, different points
There
of
you
view.
go.
Yeah. But they are from Canada. So of course they were very hospitable, as Canadians always are.
Yes.
And
No,
so
just
we-
lovely.
Yes, we really appreciated that. Thank you, Tristan and Ryan. Had a great
Yes.
time, and hope we can do it again. And we will keep our listeners posted as to when that episode drops.
Nice.
You got it.
And to our listeners, I just want to remind you that it's not too late to vote for us for the Rondo Hatton Awards. We know we've been
Right.
nominated after all these years. It's such a
Oh.
thrill to be nominated.
It's an honor.
Yes.
It is. It really is. And if you want to know how to do it, just Google Rondo Hatton Awards and it'll take you right to the link. And it explains everything right there. You just type in, who you want to vote for best podcast. Now, there's a big list of things like categories like best film, best book, best
Right.
this, best that. And you don't have to type it, go through the whole thing. You can just type in one thing. You can just put in best podcast and list us. That would be great.
Sure.
But if you feel like, hey, you'd like to vote for some other stuff, by all means, go ahead.
Well, and that's what I say. Vote for other things as well. Sure, it'd be wonderful if you voted for us, but in a lot of those other categories, we have people who are our friends, and it would be
And
great.
past guests. Yes.
Yeah, and past guests, and so if you can help them as well, that would be wonderful. Now, I know it looks like a long list, maybe, but that's a good thing because you've got so many categories, and there are so many films and magazines and artists that deserve credit for what
Absolutely.
they do, like us. I mean, we've been not to toot our own horn, but I mean, we have been doing this show for what? More than
8 years.
Eight?
I toot that horn. Toot
What
it.
is- how many years? 8 years plus?
8 years
Yeah.
plus. We
Okay.
have
It's basically
over 210 episodes. My God,
yeah.
great.
It's a labor of love that we just do because you love to talk about this
Because we
stuff.
love-
It's
yeah.
like not like it's,
Yeah,
you know,
we're not walking around in mink coats.
And one of the great things about the ballot, the Rondo ballot, is that even before we were even on the ballot, you could look at it and see what came out in the past year. And it's like, wow, that sounds interesting. I'm going to pick up a copy of that book or that magazine.
That's true.
Mhm.
Yes.
Or that
Yeah.
Blu-ray,
Yeah.
and that
Yeah, just
for
getting-
me, it's been a source of information.
That's true. Yes,
true.
very true. So yeah, get out
Vote
there
when you can.
and vote. And Larry, once again, what is the cutoff time?
The cutoff date is April 17th. So we have a little less than a month, folks. So go out and vote for us.
And it's on
Counting on you.
rondoaward.com. And to all our listeners, of course, the upcoming Monster Palooza this year, finally it's back. The
Yay!
main show at the Pasadena Convention Center. This is happening June 3rd to the 5th. And we will once again have a booth there from Monster Party.
Yep.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Recording.
come see
We'll
us.
be recording the show.
That's
all
right.
through it.
Show.
All
That's right.
3 days, we will be recording pretty much the entire day.
Yes.
Mhm.
And this,
So-
of course, this is for us maybe our favorite convention, is Monster Horror Convention. It's always great. They're already announcing some great guests like Doug Bradley, Kane Hodder, Tom Savini, Dee Wallace, David Naughton. Lots of great people already on the list. So, but yes, so
Love to have you guys come by the booth and meet us.
Yeah.
And we'd love to chat about what your favorite horror film is or monster, or it would just be great to meet you. And we might give out a few little free gifts too.
Yes,
know.
and we'll have
surprises.
we'll have new T-shirts, and we'll have just some nice swag that you can pick up. Is swag necessarily a free thing? Am I using the right word? Product. How about
Merch.
product?
Yeah.
Merch. There you go.
merch,
Yeah.
because you're right. So, yeah.
You might get something free,
No,
but it might not be a
flyers.
T-shirt.
There'll be
You might
free
have to pay.
flyers. Flyers.
That's right.
That's
Free,
swag.
the
I'm-
flyers. Oh my God. The flyers are worth the admission alone.
That's right. So make sure you can get tickets already. You can go online to get your tickets June 3rd through the 5th.
And guys, I know this is a sad thing, but I guess we have to bring it up. Akira Takarada has passed away. And it was March 14th. He died. And we're all such huge fans of this man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And he really was a legend, a wonderful actor, and a guy who personally impacted our lives.
He was in the original Godzilla in 1954 and a whole bunch of other Toho kaiju movies.
Yeah.
Classic.
We grew up watching him, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he felt like someone that we knew personally
Yes.
before we knew him personally.
And then getting the opportunity to meet him at a convention was such a thrill and such an honor. And Matt, when you meet someone like that, I mean, you're like, I mean, like, and
Yeah.
he could not have been nicer.
Oh.
He was so nice,
So
and
approachable.
charming,
Yeah.
friendly, and he knew some English, and it was great to just chat a little bit with him. And he was just a lovely man. And I think he was just touched that people idolized him so much.
And you're right, Larry. He was a gentleman and he had such charisma. Yeah. And every time we saw him at a convention and we'd get something signed, he would talk to you, and he didn't know that much English,
No.
but the English that he knew, he had a very keen sense of humor.
He did.
And
Yeah.
he had just this way of putting you at ease.
Mhm.
And I love the guy. And James and I, when we went to the last G Fest, we were at a bar. We were at the bar in the hotel.
The hotel bar. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were with Ryan Leisure, and we saw him walking around in the lobby and, doing some photo ops. And I just yelled, Takarada-san, and came over to our table. He toasted us and asked us what we were drinking. Oh, vodka. Oh, I love vodka.
Oh.
He was just great. And, we bowed, and he was just a lovely guy. And then the next day when we got stuff signed, we went to his handler and we asked if he would possibly say, "I love Monster Party," to the camera,
Yeah.
And she went to talk to him and he just immediately said, yeah. And then we saw him sort of rehearsing and getting into it. And it was just great, and then he did it, and he did it a couple times, and he was just great. And then at the end of all of it, if that were not enough, then he gave James and I his card.
Yeah, his personal business card.
Business card. Such a high honor in Japanese culture.
Right.
And it was just, I mean, that's one of my most prized possessions now.
Yeah,
so,
mine too. Wow. And I was thinking, wow, now we really have to go back to Japan because we can meet up with him. And I gotta say, it really stung when he died. But because of that, it especially stung. It's like, oh no, it's never gonna happen.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any way to do this even after the fact, but even if we went to Japan and through the information that we had on the card, just bring a gift or some sort of memorial item to them would be, I think, a nice thing to do, because again, he did mean so much to us.
Yeah, indeed. And let's remind our listeners that Monster Party merch is still available in some sizes and quantities.
Okay, stop this. We all know that it's just large.
One size on our Monster Party store on eBay, which is Monster Party Store. You guessed it, and that size is large.
Yes. Although, now wait a minute. Now it is a large, but if you took that large and then you did that thing that people do sometimes, and you cut off the sleeves. Yeah, you could cut it to show your midriff.
Right.
A lot of times, ladies do it. A lot of times.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or let's say you're a smaller person. If you need a nightshirt,
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, pajamas.
Or you could cut out the gap in the R of Monster Party and then the O of Monster Party, and then you could have your nipples through that.
Oh wow!
True.
I know. I don't think
like if you're a man or a woman, you could do that.
You could do no,
or whatever.
And this is the Monster Party Classic logo glow in the dark T-shirt.
That's right. Glows in the dark. Shows you the way. Lights your darkness. So get it. And then we also have what else?
The PPE cloth face mask with the classic logo, which is also still available. In case you're surgeon,
just get them.
Surgery, or just
if you're doing minor surgery,
some off the cuff surgery, like
if you're removing a corn and you want things to be sterile, then get it.
People are concerned now about what's in the air, so a lot of people are still wearing masks, and I get that totally. So you never know.
Yeah,
and you never know. There could be another variant.
Or, look, let's say
positive.
Let's say you're going to visit like Aunt Ruby at the hospital or something after she's just, she's had her hip replaced, and you want to go in and you want to make yourself feel more secure and safe around her. You can wear this Monster Party mask.
Yeah, and then Ruby will look at you and go, "Who are you?"
And then you take off the mask and she goes, "Who are you?" Oh, Ruby.
And one size fits all with the mask. And I should also mention that shipping is free, and we will throw in extra goodies if you're a Patreon member, courtesy of Jason Lindsay and Biff Bang Pow Toys.
Yep.
And Ted Haynes, creature creator extraordinaire, friends of Monster Party.
Yes.
Right.
And they're wonderful. Their work is wonderful. And we have items. And like James was saying, you order something, we'll throw in goodies. And it'll be like, like in whatever date it is, it'll be Christmas when you get it.
That's right.
And so Patreon, what is this Patreon I've been hearing about, Matt?
Well, Patreon is a platform that if you sign up to it, you will get access to lots of Monster Party bonus material. Now, this material could come in the form of a special episode that we do, an audio episode, or it could be one of the shows, our special shows that we produced for Patreon.
Just for Patreon people.
Like what, Larry?
Like Larry's Toy Time.
Oh, I love that show.
I just finished another one, Matt. I tell you, it's gonna be. You know how much I have a big creature collection.
Yes, you do.
Well, this is Creature Collection Part 2.
I can't wait.
And I'm
love
showing stuff that is like low numbers or non-mass produced stuff.
Wow.
You're gonna want to see this one.
Yeah. I really love your creature collection, I have to say. I really do. And I'm not just saying that. Like when I saw your stuff all together, it's like, hey, you know what? This is damn impressive.
But we also have Monster Party Masterpieces.
Oh,
it's another great thing. You know, over the years, you know, all four of us, we have filmed stuff, and some of it has never been seen by anyone else, but now it's for Patreon people.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm thrilled to see.
Yeah. And I have one on there, and I'm very proud of the piece of work that I did because it's like a little snapshot of who I was and what I was into at the time. It's called Mad Myron. So you have access to that. And of course, Larry has
there's going to be
films. Yeah.
There's going to be other things too. And Sean and James will get stuff there eventually.
Yeah, we will. We will eventually have some stuff. Yeah.
We all made movies back in the day.
Yeah.
That's true. Yes, yes. But James, what else do we have?
Well, we have extra footage from our epic tour of Japan from 2015. It's like our version of the Beatles Get Back, because this footage has been in the vault for 7 years.
But it's been such a joy to watch again.
Even we forgot what we have.
You know, for listeners, you know, you can check out A Monster Party Goes to Japan on YouTube. It's like 1 hour and 6 minutes, but this is all the raw footage. And James has put this together. I forgot some of the conversations we had, some of the adventures, what was said during, and I'm like dying. I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
We had like 3 different cameras. I had my iPhone, I had my GoPro, Larry had a flip cam and a DV cam. We were constantly shooting. Because we knew.
And guys, I don't know if you feel this way, but when I watch that footage, have you ever noticed like that as you're watching it, especially when we're in a store, I'll look in the background. I'll go, why the fuck didn't I buy that?
I know.
Matt, yes. There's sometimes I'm like, I'm an idiot. I didn't buy that.
I know.
It's kind of like, you know what it was? You know what my problem was? It's like
money.
No. It was like when I saw something and I thought to myself, okay, I just got here and I need to look around a little bit. And like, you know, I didn't want to pull one of like what you did at Comic-Con. Oh, I bought this item for $25 and tomorrow it's like 15. You know,
I know.
But thinking back of the vintage stuff that we saw, Matt, yes,
the massive amounts of stuff.
It's the volume. It also goes to show you that there's just so many toy stores and so much packed into each toy store that even while you're there, it's impossible to take it all in.
Yeah. And this is another thing too that bugs me, is that there'll be something that now, because we can't travel, I'll look on eBay and there'll be some sort of vintage Godzilla thing, for example.
Yeah.
And either it will not be there at all, or there'll be one beat up, shitty thing. And then I'll remember going to Japan and going to like your average Mandarake.
Right.
And then seeing like 9 of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
In a row.
In different shape. And most of them are all pristine.
Yes.
Because if we here in America, if there was like one Mandarake here, like some of the best ones there, like just one store it would be amazing.
Do you remember when there was?
Yeah, there was one in Santa Monica.
I know. But even though they kind of paled in comparison compared to these ones in Japan, there are so many of them, but each store, like you said, it's packed with rows and rows of stuff. So
but the point is the footage that James has put together.
Yeah, you can experience it all.
It's such a thrill and it's such a joy. And I've been to, and there's so much of it. Yes. So James, thank you for doing it. I'm enjoying it immensely.
It's been so good. It's been such a trip. I'm loving every minute of it. And what you guys are saying, I am now sold on this Patreon thing. I mean, it sounds amazing. I feel like I should be a member, but it also sounds like a luxury. I don't know how many people can afford this. How much is it?
Yeah.
All right, get this. Are you sitting down?
I'm sitting down.
$5.
$5? $5 a month?
You can't get a bag of hallucinogenic mushrooms for that price.
Wow. Wait a minute. Okay, you say you have $5, Sean. Huh?
Oh, way to bring it back home,
I'll
Sean.
tell you what. I'll make a special deal for you. You come on in.
They're gonna be teeny tiny mushrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The smallest bag of mushrooms you've ever had.
Never seen.
Yeah.
But the point is $5.
Yeah.
$5.
You won't trip,
Right.
but you might get a slight headache. So,
Yeah. Right.
but yes, $5, and
Well, that's
that
just a
allows you
bargain. That's
into
awesome.
our Patreon world, and you can get
Wow.
access to all this great stuff. So yeah, huh?
Sounds good.
How does one join up?
Well, all you got to do is you go to patreon.com, you go to Monster Party, you click the join button, you follow the instructions, and next thing you know, boom, you have just experienced a new beginning.
Ooh. Well, I'm sold.
That's one.
Count me in. And let's talk a little bit about our social media presence, which we don't do enough. We don't talk about it enough.
we
Because-
need to talk about it more. That's the problem. We're not talking about it enough.
Because we're on Facebook at Monster Party TV, and everybody's on Facebook. You can find us. It's Monster Party TV. And we're also on YouTube at Monster Party TV. And like Larry mentioned, there is over 1 hour free documentary called Monster Party Goes to Japan, which is wonderful. So check that out. Our YouTube channel also now has categories. So you can go on, and we are in different categories. So all of our guests and all of our Comic Cons, you can find us. It's easy. And of course, all of our podcast episodes are streaming for free on YouTube. So that makes it easy. And that's also Monster Party TV. You can find us there. And on Twitter and Instagram, we are Monster Party HQ. Easy to remember. And whatever platform you're listening to us on, please take a moment, write us a review. Let us know your thoughts. We would love to hear your thoughts, and we will read it on the air.
And if we don't, you are welcome to climb out of our television sets and kill us. On that note, I am Matt Weinhold.
I'm Shawn Sheridan.
I'm Larry Stroth.
And I'm James Gonis.
Keep America strong.
And delve into the world of Asia Shock cinema.
Hey, you guys want to go see a movie?
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah.
Zombie Ass, Toilet of the Dead.
Oh, yeah.
I gotta see that film. I gotta see it. Let's go.
Roll them. We are now recording. Say whatever you want. Go ahead.
I love Matt.
Where's Larry?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, that fucker. Anyway, we'll talk amongst ourselves for a little bit here.
Yeah.
So yes, Pat and I go way back. High school. Pat worked at my dad's restaurant.
Oh,
We
wow.
both worked there, actually. It was called the Red Night, and it was night themed.
Really?
Because you know how that gets the people
Night
in.
of yore.
Yeah. And there was a suit of armor, and there were crests everywhere. And it was like,
That's fun.
it was like a high scale round table.
So what kind of food? Like pizza? Like
Okay. So here was a lot of the genius ideas my dad had. Let's start a restaurant in the financial district, a place that closes down at 5, right? So all they had
I
was.
didn't even know your dad ran a
y'all.
restaurant.
Oh yeah. So they were
Wow.
caterers, and then they.
Oh yeah, okay. I vaguely
Their
remember
whole
that.
dream
Yeah.
was to start a restaurant,
Right.
and they had all these names they were going to call. At one point, they were going to call the restaurant Gary Lee, because my mom's name was Lee and he was Gary, and he's like, no, don't, please, God, no. But so anyway, they found this place. It was already called the Red Night, and it was all night themed. And so he went in there. It was kind of a dump, but they cleaned it up. And
Right.
so they had, I think there was breakfast, but there was lunch, and that's when we worked. So it was lunch. They had remember the onion bread, Pat?
Oh yeah, no, it's awesome.
No, they made this onion bread. It was this onion spread, and then that was like the thing. Like instead of regular bread, that's what you got for your bread.
And everybody
and that was
gaga for it. I mean, they loved it.
Yeah, people went crazy for it, and so so they had the lunch was great. There was a crazy German cook, Harry. You remember him?
I didn't know at the time was hitting on me because I was like 16, and
is he really?
Found out later that
is that right?
I dodged a bullet there.
Oh my God! Wow!
Yeah.
Quite a big bullet. Yeah.
He used to talk about his dingleberries, and I didn't know what he was really getting at.
No.
I didn't want to know.
And he was one of these guys who was like, he was very German, and like if you didn't come in and go, "Greetings, Harry, I offer, my honor to you as the cook," and he would get pushed out of shape. But anyway, so we worked
that place was full of your classic old-timey businessmen doing the 3 martini lunch thing.
Big time.
Every day they come in there, they just pound these martinis
with their secretary / mistresses.
Well, wait a minute.
They would be in a herd of just them.
Well, wait a minute, Pat.
They would
I know you're out of this too.
Man.
Wait a minute, Larry's coming in, and Larry's got an empty seat. So great, he's not going to be here for this.
He's invisible.
Talk about dodging a bullet. Larry's not here. So my dad would have these, it was the lunchtime rush, which was how he made his money. And then everything would close down around dinner time. And then he would have the bar open, and the bar made some money, but not that much. But so to increase business, what he would do is he would have these lingerie shows. You remember those?
What?
Oh, that sounds vaguely familiar.
It was toward the end, I think. I don't know if you were still there.
Who is modeling in genre?
It was like there would be some agency or whatever, and they'd sell this lingerie, and they'd bring these models in, and everybody, you'd see tits everywhere, and they'd come in and have these lingerie shows. And
I didn't work.
Talk about classing up a joint.
Wow, that's crazy.
And that was kind of the beginning of the end, I think, really.
Wow.
But hey, Larry.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hey, good to see you.
This is my good buddy from way back, Patrick Galloway.
Patrick Galloway, how are you, sir?
They've heard some stories.
Have you? Good stuff, I hope.
Well, you've heard some stories, is what I'm saying.
What do you mean?
About Pat. I've told stories.
Oh, my God. Oh, the stories that he's told.
Oh, my
God.
See,
I have a list. I have a list of stories.
Yeah.
I tell you.
Unless it's about him, it's like the Far Side cartoon, blah, blah, blah.
No, this isn't going to be about me.
No, it's not, Larry.
And
anyway, so Pat, we were just reminiscing about the time when we worked at my dad's restaurant.
And there was a time you tried to turn me on to Cheap Trick, and
I turned you on to that.
Oh, cool.
You tried to turn me on to you turned me on to AC/DC. You tried to turn me on to Cheap Trick and Blue Oyster Cult and the Ramones.
Ramones was a hard sell.
In fact, it was funny. Today I was just listening to a podcast where they were interviewing the original engineer on all the Ramones albums, and he was like, "It's a funny coincidence because I knew I was going to talk to you, and then I remember you just loved Ramones. You were like, Gaga. You had all the records."
Oh, he's Mr. Ramone.
I am Mr. Ramone. Yes, I am. Till this day,
I believe I brought Black Sabbath to the table, and that.
Well, no. Here's the deal: is that Pat introduced me to so many things that I love today, and like gave me a deeper appreciation for them. For example, Stephen King.
Stephen King.
You went into that?
James Stephen King.
Nice.
Yeah, I think you first gave me Night Shift, and then that blew my mind. And then I think I went Salem's Lot, Shining, but that was great. And then National Lampoon, the magazine and the records.
Oh, yeah.
Radio Dinner. I remember like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. and then let's see, AC/DC, Pink Floyd, with the help of some of our friends. You really expanded my understanding of Pink Floyd. And I remember a distinct afternoon where you were talking me through animals and your interpretation of it.
Nice.
And at one point, I remember there's a dog with a rope around his neck, and there's a rock at the end of it, and he's drowning. And that's the sound you hear in the background. And I thought,
Oh,
that
that's
has to be it.
That's horrible.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Well,
Well,
Yeah, dragged down by the stone. The stone.
Dragged down by the stone. You know, do you know
Listen
the
to
album?
the dogs again. You'll hear it.
Yes. And I thought that was great. And you need that kind of guy, like a Sherpa, to take you through
Right.
things.
well, you know what I think you need? I think you need,
Here
this
we go.
girl. No, when you're listening to
Oh, fuck.
Dark Side of the Moon for the first time and you get your first French kiss, you don't know what the fuck is going on.
Oh,
That's,
Which song did it come in?
well, it wasn't this
Was it
dog's
Money?
drowning.
Where did
No.
we find this lady?
No. We were in a play together.
Oh,
wow.
a play.
Yes. A musical theater.
A play that was
We're-
put on by the Mustang Ranch.
It was
No,
a high school
I
musical.
know.
High school
Hey.
musical based on Dark Side of the Moon, right?
No, Sean, it wasn't. But it was like, hey, come over to my house, Larry, and let's expand our mind. I'm like, oh, okay,
Oh.
and But-
Jeez.
yeah. So we put on. Some
How did you
records.
expand your mind?
Well, we put on the record, and then she did some little experimentation stuff.
Okay, you can't
Um,
just gloss over this with experimentation stuff.
So wait, you're
What
saying
happened?
you were hanging out with a really hip chick who was into drugs? You?
No, did I say drugs, Sean? Did
Well,
I say
what
drugs?
experimentation are you talking about?
Well,
Yeah.
physical body stuff.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
What?
Massaging and come
That's
on,
cool.
guys.
Cool.
Hello.
Okay.
A toe on the
body
labia. What happened?
No,
Come
no,
on.
Look, is this? Are we going to just like bring our show down by going into
That's
like
correct.
sexy
Sorry,
details?
Patrick. This is
I mean,
what
this is
is what happens.
No, I like
Feel
to run
free
a
to jump in
classy
at any
sh-
time.
No. So Pat's listening to Dark Side of the Moon with having his toe on somebody's labia or something.
No, he didn't. That was you.
I don't. No, I didn't do that. But what I'm saying is, I don't want to bring us down to
Okay,
that
all right.
level.
So,
I
well,
want to
tell
keep
me
us
what happened then.
classy.
Tell me
No,
what
don't we have a show to do?
Well,
Don't we have a really
You open the
interesting-
door with
I'm just-
experimentation.
I'm just saying that
Give me one experiment.
my first French kiss.
That was the experiment.
She shoved her tongue in my mouth. I didn't know.
What
Nothing wrong with
data did you derive from?
Well, I went with the flow, man. I
Fuck,
mean,
are you data or something? Like this was pleasurable. All right. Okay.
That's
Well,
well,
so-
my memory.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I remember the
so,
first time.
so
So we
Pat,
all enjoyed our first French kiss. I think we can all say that.
Yeah.
yeah.
I know that the first
Yeah,
time
Pink
it happened
Floyd,
to me,
that's great.
it was totally a mercy situation. I could not have had less game at that time in my life. And literally someone just said, all right, are you going to do this or not? You know, I was like,
How old?
Yeah,
How old were
okay.
you? How old were you?
Junior high school. I wonder, what was it, 12?
Oh,
Was that
man.
junior high school?
Wow.
13, something
Wow.
like that?
yeah.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, junior high school. It was the 8th grade, 7th grade. Whatever the 7th grade. How old were you in the 7th grade, Pat? You
I was
remember?
a little older, so seventh. Let's see.
7th grade would have been
Eighth
like
grade, I was-
13, I think.
Yeah, I was like 13. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
12, 13, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And her name was of course I probably won't put it, but yeah, her
What about the girl in the film that you made, Crash Corrigan? Remember her?
oh, Lorena Franco.
Ever get anywhere
Hey.
with her?
Can I just ask
Wow.
about Crash Corrigan thing? Now, is that some? Have I seen that? Is that something
It's
that
on
we
YouTube.
Is that the one where you see yourself
Oh.
on fire?
That's
with
the fire one, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh.
And Lorena Franco was lovely, very sweet. Yeah. And I'm telling you, there was
Beautiful
a
girl, yeah.
string of girls back then who were like, oh my God, they were angels. They really were. They were just, I was pathetic. And, you know, I think I just had like an inkling of boyish charm. And that was at least enough to get me in the door. But the rest was
Right.
all them and their charity.
But look at you now.
And look at
Yeah.
me now. Look at me now.
Nice charm. I tell you.
A room full of
King of
action
glow.
figures.
Yeah. I tell ya.
All right.
So, So, Asian
Nice.
shock cinema.
Speaking of
Asian,
I like
Asperger's.
it.
Asian shock cinema.
All right. Well, I
And-
mean, Pat's the man. You know, Pat.
I was
We
gonna
love your books.
Yeah.
What's that?
We love your books. James is
Okay.
also a big fan.
I have the Stray Dogs book, and I want to pick up the other ones.
Okay.
It's awesome.
Cool.
You've already made a
I was
sale.
actually all right. I 2 out of 3 of them are actually out of print. So
Oh.
actually,
Oh, we'll get them.
My
Oh, we'll get 'em.
second Samurai film book is still you can get all of them on Amazon. They're used and stuff.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
but actually the second Samurai film book, it's called Warring Clans and Flashing Blades. And I'm
Ooh.
actually
Cool.
pretty proud of that one. That's like kind of my best work, you know.
Okay.
It's the
Wow.
one that sold like maybe 3 copies. So you can get
But,
that one.
Hey, after tonight, you're going to sell at least another
Yeah, forget-
couple.
yeah.
I imagine
So,
it's just going to blow the lid off it. Yeah, so I'm just I'm thrilled
Yeah.
to be here.
Well, Matt, it
Um,
seems like you got the perfect guest for us. This is great.
I do, and I'm just so delighted to see you, Pat. Seriously, like
Great to see you too. I mean, it just takes me back to am I going insane? You know?
Black Sabbath. Anybody? No.
yeah.
Yeah,
with a
these
little
guys don't.
enhancement.
These guys don't
No,
download.
hey, I
things.
know.
Hey,
Black Sabbath,
but
yeah.
but
Do you
Cheap
know
Trick-
Am I Going Insane?
I know that. I've heard that song. Yes.
See, Sean is like the cooler one
I'm like,
when it comes to the rock.
but
Yeah.
I'm like AC/DC, Ramones. I mean,
Yeah, these
Pink
guys are
Floyd,
like,
Cheap
you
Trick.
know,
I'm
I'm
Well,
Cheap
why do
Trick.
they go-
I like the Dream Police. Come on, man. I'm
Yeah.
hip. Come on.
I'm hip.
Cheap Trick.
Matt's with you there.
Yeah, he is.
Tell ya.
Cheap Trick, Green Day, and like Bill Haley. I think is like.
I
where
listened to Green
Larry-
Day today. It's
Bill
like anytime to get myself fired up. I'll put it on and I'm a couple of Red Bulls,
Wow.
a little Green Day. I'm ready to go. Definitely. And Pat, is there a way that, you said you start Korean, but are you able to encapsulate all of the Asian cinema together? It's like what makes it interesting or
I don't know if
fanciful?
Matt shared. I came up with a list.
Yeah,
even
I
broke
gave
it
you the
into
list.
3 parts. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
The
awesome.
list who has different 3 parts, and let's just do that because it's
Okay.
a really what I love about your list is it's a lot of stuff that I've heard of and that I like, that I understand certainly why it's on that list, especially focusing on the shock part of it. But there's also a few there that I had never heard of, so this will be great.
And I
then-
wasn't going to go slavishly through it. I mean, it's
Yeah,
I thought of Daimajin. I really should bring up Daimajin. I didn't.
And
put
we
that on
can.
the list, but-
Sure.
But I figured
Yeah.
you got to love Daimajin, right?
Oh
So
my
that's-
Of course.
Of course.
But
Yeah.
Pat,
It's
just
gonna be
remember
on-
that when we say a title of something, let's kind of say what it is. Don't just say like
Yeah,
the
no,
title.
I get it.
give
Yeah.
a little overview or whatever, or a
Yeah.
brief description.
I'm not
Synopsis.
assuming anybody knows what I'm talking about.
That's the
Right.
point.
Come on.
I didn't know
Not in
that.
this country,
That's
no.
That's
all
the
the
point.
kids are Daimajin crazy, so
yeah.
Yeah, no,
It's trending right now.
Yeah, it really is.
It's really hip. It's really hip right now
Oh yes,
with the kids.
Almost as
All
hip
right.
as Cheap Trick.
Oh yeah. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the Dream Police are inside my head now.
Oh,
It's great seeing you, and just I know we don't want to keep you too much longer and I really appreciate the time that you could give to us.
Yeah,
but,
totally.
Yes.
but I
indeed.
do want to say
Yeah.
I have very fond memories of our time together. For example, being on acid on my motorcycle, driving through the fog
Wow.
Whoa.
in your neighborhood. Do you remember that?
Wow.
I remember taking acid with you quite a few times, actually. But,
That's right. Yeah.
Were we like on a scooter or something?
Well,
a scooter? Was it a scooter?
was
Really?
not a- it was
is
not a-
scooter.
Pat,
Was it
don't
your-
do
was
this
it
to
your
me.
motorcycle?
Pat, it was my motorcycle.
It was your
It was not-
motorcycle.
It was my motor.
Yeah,
It was not a scooter. I
Okay.
never rode a scooter.
Is it a golf cart, maybe?
It was, it was a top of the line big wheel.
Matt had one of the first zip lines that anybody
Now
had in
that's
his
true.
backyard.
Really?
And I fell off of it and broke my, what did I break? My
Broke your
ankle, I
arm.
believe?
No.
Yeah,
Or wrist or something. I remember. So this
Yeah.
was the first
Wow.
time I ever took acid, and I took it with Pat, of course. And Pat is again a lovely person to do it with because it's nothing but joy, and laughter, and we had a great time. And so, I believe we're with Kurt Lyon, right?
What were we?
I think so, but
He doesn't remember. He
I
was
wouldn't
on
be surprised.
acid.
And maybe this was the second time. I don't know, but I remember it as the first time. And then we go in the back where I have the zip line, and you have to you have to climb up this tree, and then there's a weird little like bench you got to sit on, but it's a little precarious.
It was
And
so
so
dangerous. It was
very
completely
dangerous,
hazardous.
and it's in total darkness. So we're on acid, and he climbs up, and then he falls. He breaks his arm, but he didn't even know it until I think the next day.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, you were like,
Wow.
oh, my arm.
Did you go, look at what my arm could do,
No.
man?
No.
Suddenly he became the one-armed zipliner.
It was, right? He was Jimmy Wang Yu of our group. But now, do you remember this, Pat? Do you remember us then, after that, walking around the neighborhood, going over to the lip of the hill, Warren Drive, where my house was, and we looked down, and do you remember that a house had come off its supports that was built against a hill and had slid into the street?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, I do.
No.
Yeah.
Yes. And we
Are you
walked down
kidding?
there, and I remember,
Yeah.
I remember looking at Pat and thinking, I need to take acid more often. This is God telling me to take acid. A house is in the street. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no. Shortly thereafter, Kurt and I took some acid, and he at that time, do you remember he used to get a bug, a VW bug off of the strange woman that lived in your neighborhood, and she let him borrow her car? Does this ring a bell?
Yeah.
It's a strange woman. She came on to me. She was like pushing 60, and I'm like 16, right? You know, she returned the car, right? Cornered me in the kitchen, you know.
Really?
But earlier that night, we both dropped, right? And we're driving around in our cars at nighttime, and swear to God, we come up to we were like over like 9th and what's the one above 9th and Irving, the one block up on 9th, right?
Judah?
San Francisco. Not Judah, no, the one up. But anyway, this accident had just happened. These two cars had just hit. One guy like gone through the windshield. It was like this gruesome scene.
Wow.
And we're like peaking, right? We're really like we're coming on real strong.
Wow.
And this had just happened like 2 seconds, right? No one's there, no cops, no nothing. People are just kind of crawling around. We were just like driving by like, wow, man.
Heavy.
True story.
Jeez.
That's heavy duty. I think ours was a little more positive because I don't think anyone got hurt when the house fell. It was just
let's hope.
crazy.
We don't know if somebody was going to the can or something.
Yeah, I do remember a lot of press and press. The news people were there. Yeah, there were a lot of press people with the
Paparazzi.
ass in their hat. Yeah, a lot of guys like,
Say, what happened here?
Hey, this seems like quite a story.
What a scoop.
Just like that.
Call my editor. Oh my
Stop the
God.
presses.
Oh my
But anyway, that was an amazing time. And but yeah, I have such fond memories of all the things that we did. So
Me too, man.
yeah. We need to hang in person someday soon.
You rolled this tiniest pinner I've ever seen. Pinner King right over here. The
Yeah.
Pinner King.
Wow.
Was it to sell?
No, just to smoke with your friend, supposedly.
Oh my goodness. Wow. I'm sorry. Because I remember
Maybe you were
there-
low. I don't know. Maybe you
Yeah,
were
it
just
must
low.
have been low. Yeah.
I probably was low because, around that time, money, to have money of any
Yeah, I
kind.
know.
Yeah,
we were
yeah.
like 15. Where were we going to get weed?
I do remember though that when you had pot, you got this pot that was like pretty green and kind of smelled very grassy, fresh,
It was Thai stick. Yeah, it was real Thai stick.
Well, but you had there was a bag of pot that you would get, a huge bag.
Oh,
And it was
yeah,
super
no, that
green.
stuff. Yeah. Yeah, my mom, I got that off my mom. Yeah.
Wow.
And I remember
Well, she got it from a guy at work, but he grew it, and then she would because there was the paraquat thing. You remember that back in like the late
yes,
70s?
I do.
The
Yeah,
paraquat
everyone was
scare?
scared of that. Yeah.
Yeah, so she knew a guy at work who grew his own plants, and so in order to protect me from paraquat, because she knew I was an incorrigible pothead, she would get this big bags off of this guy at work, and that's what it was. Yeah,
And it was
I'm drunk.
hey, it worked. That's all I can
No,
say.
you're
Yeah.
right.